What's up, gamers? Yeah, this is from Severance Darko. It's the theme, but it's a version of it from like the second to last episode. And luckily, they don't copy strike this version. just a regular theme will get a copyright claim, but I figured out the version I play as the intro, they don't copy strike, so it's goated. Yeah. Severance is a really good show. Chat, you should watch Severance if you have not. I just hope, supposedly, it's not going to take another 3 years to get a to get a goddamn season. Oh my god, I've been on a media binge lately and couldn't place it. Horrible, horrible, unbelievable. I thought it was a good show. Yeah, it. I would, you know, obviously been watching, or I watched the Stranger Things stuff when it came out too. It sucks that every fucking show takes 5 years to make a goddamn new season. Okay. Because I don't remember anything that happened in Stranger Things. I ain't gonna lie. It's like... Bro, it's like, you know, I'm like 2 years younger than most of the actors. I don't know any of their names. Isn't one of their names Finn? Yeah, Finn Wolfhard. Yeah, he's 22. So like I'm 2 years younger than him, and they were like 13 when the series started. So it's like I'm supposed to remember watching season 1 and 2 of Stranger Things when I was like 14 years old. It's like I don't remember that shit, bro. I don't remember that shit. What's up, Easy Money? The stream is a miracle. He's doing like 5 times in 3. That Easy Money. Like I'm not very consistent at streaming, but you always. It's just not true that. Like, I think I streamed 3 days ago, brother. You always, like, way over-exaggerate. Okay, 3 days ago, 7 days ago, 11 days ago, and then 2 weeks ago, but it's really, like, so this is either 14 or 15 days ago or something. The 16th. It's like, you know, I ain't gonna pretend I'm consistent at streaming, but, like, feel like it ain't that bad. Not as bad as you usually make it out to be. Okay. Where does it show me the streams? Like, yeah. I need to lock in. Okay, but I never do. I have like half an excuse for like earlier today and stuff, though. You can see they're doing construction in my room. It messes up my reverse sleep schedule because the construction people are on a normal sleep schedule. Horrible. Anyway, oh, also other half of the excuse. Okay, hold on. Update, okay? Check this shit out. Check out my Facebook Marketplace finds, okay? This is see this? I got this for 70 bucks, and it is brand new. It's still in it's like, you know, anti-static fucking wrap and stuff too, and it's sealed. Okay, so this is goated. Okay, this is like 180 bucks new or whatever. Goated find. This. Love the definitely necessary laptop. Oh, that's it's for my chats. Like I run. Like it's got all my chats pulled up. Like you can see like it has YouTube chat. Then it will scan YouTube chat and send stuff. I use this program called Social Stream Ninja. to capture all my chats, and you have to have the windows open. It can hide the windows, so they don't have to be like open as in like you have to literally be looking at them and seeing them, but they have to be like running in the background, and I can just run it on my laptop, so I don't have to use any of the RAM for my computer to have 100 tabs open for all the different chats. And speaking of RAM, this is an interesting find. DDR5 RAM and DDR4 RAM too at this point is fucking hella expensive right now, because apparently whatever AI companies need the fucking shit that usually makes RAM, and it's just like hella expensive. Okay, it's like 200 fucking bucks for a kit of like 32 gigs. I found 32 gigs of DDR5 RAM for 40 bucks. Now, small caveat, they are from a brand you've probably never heard of. Kim2Go. And they're also pretty slow. It's like 4800 megahertz, but you know, that's still faster than the RAM I have now, which is like 3200 megahertz. And I'll probably just upgrade RAM later on down the line when, pray to God, the price goes down. Price won't go down, but 32 gigs of RAM, that's maybe 3-4 Chrome tags. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Show you YouTube Rewind. I don't have that. I have my Spotify Wrapped, like the YouTube Music whatever thing. I can show my Twitch one. I'm not aware of any YouTube one I have, because if you don't listen to enough music on YouTube Music, it just doesn't give you one. Even though I listen to YouTube Music, or I listen to music on regular YouTube, so it doesn't give me a rewind, even though really I should get one. But this was I'm counting this as a goated find. Y'all may not fuck with Kim2Go, but trust me, 5 years from now, you'll all be using Kim2Go RAM. Check this out. This motherfucking, I got this today. This is my excuse for not streaming earlier, because I had to drive to pick this up like an hour there, an hour back. I don't count this as a goated find. It was a good find. It wasn't that goated though. I paid $50 for this incredible liquid, whatever, what's it called? Arctic fucking liquid death freezer bullshit, whatever. Really good AIO. Got it for $50, and it's like, this is the RGB version too, and that's like 100 something 30 new or whatever. So it was a good find, but it's not goated, because I still had to buy the bracket that I needed because it didn't come with it, and I have to buy thermal paste, which is not that expensive, but thermal paste, because it obviously the pre-applied thermal paste is not is no longer on it. Anyway, that's a goated update. Or PC update. Show you, sorry, no, it's not YouTube Music. YouTube has one itself. I didn't see, YouTube did not tell me it had that. Head into the YouTube app. Okay, well, so problem number one. My phone is actually my webcam right now. So hopefully this works. Nope. Just shows me my history and my playlist. Cool. My Twitch recap though, I can share. And we will be doing the non-fun awards again this year, of course. What's up, non-fun? How was your recap? Which recap? They're all interesting. 296 new followers, 4,000 hours watched, 98 new subs. Top category, I was top 10% in I'm assuming just the amount of time streamed in politics. What's a non-fun award? It's a PowerPoint where I go through and I thank my most active chatters and mods, and I'll have you guys vote again on what the best debate was and stuff. I'm almost sleeping because during the subathons I had myself in that category when I was sleeping. Marvel Rivals, Jackbox, Fortnite. I thought there was more stuff or whatever. Gibbs rated me. Soul, Isaac. Damn, I gave Kid Not Kin. Notice, calling them out. I gave Kid Not Kin 20 raids. Gave me 0. Although I think Kid Not Kin, I'm pretty sure he fucking never stops streaming, right? Like he does his whatever marathon stuff. Dylan Bird's irrelevant. 1,000 raids for charity. There's no way that's right only through Twitch. What? Unless I'm missing something. Lol, I'll be the #1 supporter in 2026. Trust. Was it more? No, it's less than that. I didn't even make $1,000 myself. How much did you earn yourself from this year streaming? In total, I don't really know. Probably. I think technically I was only monetized this year anyway on YouTube. Probably like maybe $1,500, maybe. I'm gonna guess around 1,500, but I don't really know. Bro, iron blocks. China, it might be Vietnam. I want to say Vietnam, but it could be like South Korea, could be Japan, could even be, I'm gonna guess Germany. Could even, I think Germany's probably up there. Yeah, okay, Germany's #3. I don't know if Vietnam would be on there. I don't know. I feel like iron blocks implies some like second level manufacturing shit. Like it's not just extracting raw materials or anything. And I don't know if Vietnam, like it's more capital intensive, and I don't know if Vietnam has advanced enough capital. But I also feel like the US is too advanced capital to do iron blocks. I'm gonna guess the US though, because I feel like China and Germany were similar enough to them that we might be on there. We're #9. Feel like Japan would be up there. Number 10. Oh, fuck. Vietnam. Fuck. 39. Goddamn. Turkey. I would never guess Luxembourg. I could have probably guessed Spain though. A bunch of gold. 8 billion. It's got to be. Switzerland have more shit than just this, right? So it's probably like some African country that only makes gold. Uganda? I don't know. Damn it. Sudan law? I would think Sudan would have oil as well. Because a lot of the northern African countries have oil too. And they don't really have that. Is this in South America? 3,000 kilometers west? No, it is. I'm bad at judging kilometers. That can't be still in Africa, is it? Trump banned immigration from all third world countries besides India. Well, did he actually go through with it yet or whatever? Or I saw he announced that on Truth Social. I don't even know. I would imagine it's not legal for him to do it. Not that some version of it couldn't get implemented and a court not immediately strike it down or whatever. Yes, he did. Oh, if you link something. Kilometers. Can I get that in eagles for a second? That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's no way the DRC. I feel like would have other stuff too, but I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, that's not nearly far enough. I don't know, fucking kilometers. Oh my god, give me it in fucking pancakes per diabetes, bro. What the hell? Morocco would have tourism and stuff. Mauritania. Maybe it fucking is Sudan, bro. Maybe it's South Sudan. Nope, that's even further. Wait, what? I gotta get better judging kilometers or something, bro. DHS announced a full suspension of immigration and naturalization from 19 countries: Afghanistan, Burma, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, blah 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 blah. Yeah, I didn't see this yet, but I would imagine there's no way to. I would imagine someone would seal over it, and there's going to be some ruling that it can't actually be go into effect or whatever. Although, that'll probably take some time, and I imagine it'll get fucking appeals, and there's going to be some TRO, whatever, that says actually it can go into it can be in effect until we actually rule on it. Like same thing with the fucking tariff shit. So we'll see. Are you kidding me? Togo, bro. Fuck. Burkina Faso. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I know roughly where Burkina Faso is, but I wouldn't immediately think of them for this stuff. But does anyone know where you can, if there's a way to fucking pirate the Goldman Sachs shit? Because my understanding is like the Goldman Sachs, some of these releases are kept private for a while, and the only way I can find most of them is through fucking Scotland Ancome's tweets. You're basically given free reign to break asylum law. Well, apparently. Okay. Well, at least the kick bots are banning them after they send a message now. That's decent. That's better. But yeah, those are interesting. Although it would be, again, useful if I could find the actual source thing, because there are a number of things like this which I have bookmarked, and I don't want to. I never want to like cite a fucking tweet in a debate. Are they in Sci-Hub? Maybe no, or even if they were, I don't know how I could exactly find them. But whatever. It's not like it's actually gonna change people's minds. Okay, doesn't matter. No one cares. How many studies do we have that show tariffs leads to net job losses, and no one cares? Okay. The resistance is so muted to Trump this time around. Everyone knows the Biden term was too much. What the fuck does that mean? First of all, I don't know if the resistance is muted. Like, you do see, like, the No Kings protest, for example. That was a really big protest. Like, that was one of the biggest protests in America. Now, it might be the case that each individual action Trump does, like, no longer receives as much attention, but that's part of that's just simply to do with he does so many insane things that it's hard to get angry about every single one of them. So unless you have the ultimate TDS like me. Do you like Drew Gooden or not? I do like Drew Gooden. We will, I think, watch some of that Drew Gooden video, because oh my god, kill me. I like Drew Gooden. I like his content. And I've watched him for, I mean, I was too young for Vine, but like I've watched him almost this entire time on YouTube, I want to say. I think he's funny. I just think he made a really dumb video. I just think he doesn't actually know that much about it, about some of the things he was talking about, like, you know, historically, the effective tax rate historically, or about capital markets, I guess, about inequality. So, like, they just made a dumb video because of that. We can. Do we want to do it? Do we want to do it before I read a little bit? I don't know how long this stream will be because my sleep schedule is like mostly normal, so I don't know. I even wrote out my grievances because I had a little time when I wasn't streaming. But yeah, I liked her good. I want to say, like, I remember watching these. So, like, around 7 years ago, I definitely remember watching the Jake Paul live show stuff. Like, I'm watching it for like at least 7 years. So, wait before you watch. I like his content. He's funny, dude. I hope he keeps making content. I don't hate him. I don't hate him for this video. I just think he made a lot of mistakes in this video. Yes, I know you've linked this like 5 times in my server. What do you think of this and Fiat Money's response to it? What did Fiat Money say? Learn to read graphs. There's no relationship. Well, this is a slop graph because you should adjust for outstanding debt. And if you do that, it does seem like the fiscal stimulus did cause some amount of inflation. COVID inflation, was it from overheating, the economy, fiscal stimulus? This is just saying real GDP is below trend, therefore we're not overheating the economy because the potential output was the trend from 2024, or the trend from 2019 pre-COVID. Proof that inflation is from printing money. Oh boy. What? First they printed money for energy purchase. Coincidentally, oil wells have been shut down during COVID. I don't even know what the hell. Percentage points annual rate. I don't even know what this. Contributions to inflation over 2% base. Is this weighted? Because like CPI and PCE obviously weight how much these each are based on how, you know, what percentage of a basket of goods they take up for the typical consumer. I don't know if they're doing that here. But it's not. I don't think anyone says that supply shocks didn't contribute, at least short term, to some amount of inflation. Well, most reasonable people don't say that. Inflation from excessive aggregate demand, HICB in Europe, Euro area contribution, domestic demand to GDP growth. No correlation is 0 or negative. I'm not familiar with contribution of domestic demand to GDP growth. I'm not familiar with what that term actually means. He's sarcastically saying that he's implying it's from a supply shock. Well, I know he's not saying that money is what caused, printing money is what caused inflation, because I know he doesn't believe that. What I'm saying is I don't actually know. Like, his point here was like, oh, supply shocks are actually what is causing inflation, and that's what caused oil and stuff to spike. And for one, I don't think most reasonable people don't disagree with that. It's just a matter of percentages. And for two, like I said, I don't know. I don't know if these are weighted or not. They might be, but like this trend of inflation or whatever does not look like the graph for year-over-year increases of PCE or CPI. So I don't really know what he's doing there. You should follow Fiat Money. I love trolling him. I feel like I do follow him. I guess I don't. But I don't know. Like, I've seen him and hamsters and stuff talk before. It's funny sometimes. So if you're, I like feel like I've already told you everything about like I don't know, it's definitely conceivable to me that the American Rescue Plan was too large. It contributed to a decent amount to inflation, but I also, like I said, I'm just agnostic as to how big the effect was on growth, right? So like I know I understand the labor market and stuff was relatively recovered by the time it was passed, but like, would we have seen under 4% unemployment for 27 months straight to whatever, absent the American Rescue Plan? I think it's plausible to answer to that as no. And I don't know if it would have been bad enough such that the trade-off with inflation wouldn't have been worth it to make, or worth it to not pass it. But like I said, I just don't know.
I feel like for the past 3 years, I've heard over and over again that a recession is about to hit. The stock market is going to crash. The housing prices are going to come back down to earth any day now. And yet somehow all of these things keep not happening.
Copium? How's that copium? I found the redacted version of GS report might be slightly better than citation and tweet. Yeah, if you can link it to me. I feel like for one of the old ones, I did find eventually the limited release of it or whatever.
And for most people, it doesn't make sense. What do you mean the economy's good? My dentist just tried to get me to sign up for a credit card. Since the pandemic, the cost of living has skyrocketed.
Just like, again, I like Gooden. He's a funny dude. Typically, any video or person you see like this where they just flash a bunch of graphs from a ton of different like sources on screen, like this is, I think, what's it called, Statisa or whatever.
Inflation.
And then we do, this shit. It's like that seems to be more indicative of someone going to fucking Google images, okay, and copying and pasting these graphs and then actually having any understanding of what they're citing. So you should always be looking out for that shit. I appreciate it, Darko.
What do you mean the economy's good? My dentist just tried to get me to sign up for a credit card. Since the pandemic, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Inflation. What do you mean the economy's good? I've never been.
God, I can't fucking.
Dentist just tried to get me to sign up for a credit card. Since the pandemic, the cost of living has skyrocketed. Inflation is
like this graph. First of all, average hourly earnings. This is for all. This is for all employees, right? What's funny is if you look at average hourly earnings for production and non-supervisory employees, those actually have outpaced inflation. Now, because during COVID we saw actually quite a lot of wage compression. Production and non-supervisory employees, they are, this is supposed to be sort of jobs that are more representative of a middle class or like typical working family. It's production or non-supervisory, non-managerial workers, right? And those actually did grow faster than CPI. But something funny is that I think if you
out of control, notice, groceries have never.
This next graph, instead of hourly earnings, he switches to weekly earnings. And I think so here it's fair to use weekly earnings, I think, actually, to compare it to food prices. But if you look at hourly earnings compared to food prices, wages again grew faster than food prices. It's when you use weekly earnings, they didn't grow faster than food prices. See, that person who feels like we've been in a recession since 2023. I mean, I agree the vibes are off. Okay. I just think, one, if you poll individuals, it seems like many individuals rate their financial situation far better than the hello YouTube, far better than the state of the than what they rate the state of the economy at, right? Like this is just a illustrative graph, and this will probably come up a few times. It's like people think the national economy is doing relatively worse, but their personal life, like their personal financial situation, most Americans rate relatively high compared to that. And, you know, I think obviously I'm not going to disagree with people who say like housing prices are a problem and stuff, and there are real genuine problems with the you know, cost of living that should be addressed. But, you know, you did see sort of consumers' perception of the economy track a lot more with unemployment, track a lot more with job growth in the past than you did sort of during COVID and post-COVID, right? So it does seem like something else, like the perception, how people inform their perception of the economy like has changed as well, and like social media has probably played a role in that. For example, Showers pull up the inflation made the median voter for article. I agree with that, Easy Buddy. I agree. I don't disagree with that. I also think that it's not true that I don't think it is true the average person thinks it feels like they've been in a recession for 3 years or whatever. But I also don't, you know, I don't think that's factually true either.
Ever been more expensive?
Layoffs. Like, obviously, it's quite obviously not factually true. We've been anywhere close to a recession for since 2022 at least.
Are happening at an alarming rate. At this point, a college degree might be more likely to get you into crippling debt than ever been more expensive. Layoffs are happening again at an alarming rate. At this point, a college...
To me, all this stuff is like indicative of going to Google Image, like typing in an idea that you already have, like, oh, college prices have gone up a bajillion, quadrillion %, and just typing that into Google Images and pasting it into your video, rather than actually doing any type of substantial, you know, reading on it. I mean, it's true, like, student debt has grown. Now, it is obviously decreased in 2023 because of the student debt cancellation. Although, I don't know. Obviously, a lot of that's been reversed by now. But, like, sticker price versus real price of college. The sticker price of college... Oh, sorry, the like sort of the net price of college after financial aid has actually been relatively stable for a while. The sticker prices have gone up, but I think since 2006 it's been like entirely flat. It hasn't flat basically since this is 2011 or whatever. But it has not gone up a crazy amount. Oh, this lets you see it by family income, because college is engaged in a crazy amount of price discrimination, right? And you can apply for a lot of financial aid, and colleges there's only been more financial aid and more price discrimination the longer things have gone on. But true economic conditions are really bad. There's no way. Really bad. That's crazy. Did you see that poll that says most Americans don't think a 4-year degree is worth it anymore? I mean, I'm certain you can find polls that say that. It doesn't surprise me. I haven't seen that, you know, any specific poll that says that, but that's not at all surprising.
Degree might be more likely to get you into crippling debt than it is to help you find a job. And even if you have savings, you're more than likely one stroke of bad luck away from losing it all to medical bills. And yet,
at the very least, we didn't get the average American can't afford a $400 emergency expense meme. At the very least, we avoided that.
Some people find it. Layoffs are happening at an alarming rate.
I think that there's like
right?
2.5 areas.
College degree.
I somewhat agree with Drew in this video, and I don't think he actually does a very good job at sort of defending his positions or like actually showcasing any super well researched position.
Might be more likely to get you into crippling debt than it is to help.
Medical debt's a problem, and I think he attributes the, you know, college educated losses to AI later in the video, and to some extent I agree with that too. And I think Drew way over exaggerates this, especially later on. The labor market is weakening, and whenever the labor market weakens, you sort of expect kind of the riskiest hires, the people in the margins to be hit with the job losses first, right? That's why you see right now the unemployment rate for younger workers, like people aged 16 to 24 or whatever, that's gone up quite a bit. Meanwhile, the overall unemployment rate has been slowly going up, but relatively stable compared to, if I just look up Fred, unemployment 16 to 24. That's at like 10%. It's been going up a lot faster. Same thing for if you look at, I think, minority workers too. Does Fred have a series for just black workers? Yeah. Like this increase has been, like you can see, it went from 6% to 7.5. Just the headline unemployment rate, U3 unemployment, that's gone from like 4% to maybe 4.4 in the same time. Hold on, when was it 6? It was May 2025. Was that 6? May 2025, 4.2 to 4.3 in the headline rate.
You find a job, and
Americans Americans today don't know what the 1950s were like. Okay, they don't recognize that people lived in fucking slums in the 50s, bro, where we had 90% top marginal tax rates. True, and life was good. This is true.
even if you have savings, you're more than likely one stroke of bad luck away from losing it all to medical bills. And yet some people will look you right in the eyes and tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. The numbers are green.
True. This is my exact position. We'll get into this more later on, but if there is I think the case that American workers are doing relatively good or whatever, certainly better than they did historically, better than they were in the 50s, and have been doing decent considering the whole COVID situation we had, the lingering effects of that. There's a lot more data behind that than just asset prices have gone up. No one is claiming, or I don't want to say literally no one. 99% of people who hold a similar position to me or whatever are not claiming that because asset prices have gone up for a lot of big tech companies, that therefore the average American is doing better. It's like, no. You can look at data about wages, data about employment, data about the size of homes, the quality of goods, the quality of health outcomes. Those all show improvements too.
Is this guy stupid?
Easy money. You don't wait until we have fucking AI, bro. Okay, then we'll have a bajillion % year-over-year growth. It'll be awesome.
But the problem is each of these people are kind of correct in their own way. This is the best the economy has ever been if you already have money. If you bought a house 5 years ago, there's a chance it's already doubled in value. If you invested in the S&P 500 in 2021, you could be up as much as 80%. And that's not like saying, you'd be rich if you just bought Bitcoin in 1973. That's just the regular stock market. You didn't need to have some genius level of foresight to be able to do that. You just needed to already have a bunch of cash sitting around. And obviously for the overwhelming majority of people, that is not the case. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not.
True. So there's maybe 20% agreement here. Okay. So it is true. Investors who already have money can invest their money and stay rich, even if they don't invest in risky assets that, they presumably, if you're going to invest in something risky, you're going to have some foresight in order to actually make it big, right? You're going to have to actually accurately predict whether or not some company is going to succeed or fail. But at the number one, at the end of the day, investors are still taking some risk when they invest in S&P 500, and they are deferring consumption, right? And it's probably good reason to believe, just overall. Also, what's up, Sauce Drama? No, that's my number one YouTube channel for the year. Let's go, Bays! Hell yeah. Dude, I don't know why I can't have my fucking YouTube recap on my desktop. That's upsetting. I guess I can try my other phone here. You'll notice this a lot. I hate to do the meme, but there just is no analysis of the trade-offs, right? Like, it is probably good that we have a stock market that is able to efficiently allocate capital to companies that are growing, companies that are efficient, companies that are providing consumers with what they want. And it's good that investors have some incentive to invest in good companies, but we never do that analysis, and it's not zero sum either. Like, obviously you could imagine having a good financial market, having by good I mean not super highly regulated or taxed or anything, having a relatively free capital market obviously might help. That's going to help asset holders, but you would imagine it would also help consumers, because there are positive sum transactions there between firms and consumers, and probably workers as well. Insofar as, like a lot of research and development, at the end of the day, it's about making workers more productive. And when workers get more productive, you see their wages go up, right?
Thinking about the stock market.
Although he thinks there's a big gap between productivity and pay, and I think he shows that graph like fucking 4 times in this video, bro. It's crazy.
If you're in your 20s, you haven't even been working long enough to save any money to invest. You don't get to benefit from rising home equity if you don't own a house. The only thing this graph represents to you is how much further away that dream is getting. Right now, the average...
There's no analysis about why it's happening. At the very least, he doesn't say it's BlackRock, but... no analysis.
Age of home buyers is 59 years old. What a depressing statistic. This is the...
And like this... Again, I like Drew. It feels like he went to Google, typed in some idea he already had, and like clicked on, somebody, like the first stuff that came up, right? Or saw somebody's things on social media. So like this is a article, Fortune magazine. This is citing what's crazy in this article. This is citing Apollo chief economist Torsten Slok, one of Wall Street's most influential analysts, put it in perspective on Thursday. The average age of a home buyer skyrocketed in the U.S. as well, as observed in a note and chart shared with Fortune today. Slok calculated from the same NAR data set that the median age of all U.S. home buyers in 2025 is 59 years old. Just 15 years ago, it was 39. So he's using the same underlying data as what I would guess, I could be wrong, I haven't done a ton of research into it, is probably the better estimate that the National Association of Realtors put out. And it says the average age of the first-time home buyer was 40 in 2025, and I think it says it was literally only like 39 or something 15 years ago, whatever. I thought the NAR also, or the NAR also had a estimate for what the home buyer was 15 years ago, whatever. But like, even taking the Slok dude's estimate, it's moved from 39 years old 15 years ago to 40 in 2025. Come on, bro. Just like generally, it's not that Wall Street people can't do good analysis. It's not that individual economists can't do good analysis either. But when you have a data set that's put out by like some actual institution, that's probably more reliable than the work of some economist working for a private firm, presumably putting out this report to argue that investing in housing or something is a good decision. And also, this is the Redfin data. And I don't know the methodology behind this, to be fair. Like I said, I've not done a ton of research into this. It places Gen Zers, at the same age as boomers, like 8% lower or whatever. At age 27, 33% of Gen Zers have their own home. Baby boomers, 41% of them own their own home. But not done a crazy amount of research into it. It's just, you shouldn't have super strong opinions. You shouldn't be making super strong claims, especially to an audience of millions of people nonetheless, based on a Forbes article where it's clear I don't think Drew understands methodology behind it as well. And also, some of it's just because Zoomers ain't getting laid, okay? If you just aggregate it by married versus unmarried households, the data is pretty similar. Like the same, roughly the same number of married households, I think, own homes today as they did historically. It's just that Gen Z's overall marriage rate was lower. Now, there is some evidence. I think this thread has a, or no, here it is. There's a case to be made that rising house prices is also part of the cause behind declining marriage rates. Like, this is just one paper argument house prices explained roughly 30% of the decline in marriage. But nonetheless, 70% explained by other factors, even with that case, right? And it still seems like if you disaggregate it by marriage, the numbers are pretty similar. Adults' homeownership rates are higher now than 1990 when controlling for marriage status. Is married, 59% own their own home, 6%. Wait, what am I not understanding this chart? Oh, my bad. This is just talking about okay. So of the married households, okay, in 1990, okay, yeah, 59.6% of them had owned their own home. Nowadays, 61.6%. It's just, a lot less Gen Zers are married now. So, or lots of people married now at the same age.
The problem with an economy that disproportionately benefits asset holders instead of the people still trying to earn them. Wealth grows exponentially, but wages aren't even outpacing inflation, which means if your salary hasn't been going up,
incels messing up the housing market for real.
Up every year, you're.
And also, again, it's not zero sum. So when you say something disproportionately helps asset holders, it could be the case that something does disproportionately help asset holders, but it's still better for both asset holders and the proletarian working class than a counterfactual of doing some other policy where asset holders aren't helped, but also, workers are worse off as well. It could be the case that what's interesting, Drew says all these things. He never presents like any negative effects from inequality in his video. And I think there are certainly arguments you can make that inequality has some negative effects on the health outcome, some negative effects on even just stress levels and stuff, because there is a perception element to things. People perceive that they are, sort of lower on the social ladder, that that can have negative outcomes in and of itself. He doesn't actually talk about any of that evidence. He just kind of takes it for granted that's like a true thing. It could be the case that some positive sum trade is outweighed by whatever negative externality from inequality there is, but we just don't talk about that.
You're effectively making less money. Meanwhile, the fastest way to make $1 million
also the productivity pay me, and I think he just
asset holders instead of the people still trying to earn them. Wealth grows exponentially, but wages aren't even outpacing inflation, which means if you're
just inflation. Depends over what times, if overall for the past 40 years, wages have been outpacing inflation, even if you use what I think is a relatively poor methodology. During COVID specifically, many people's wages at least did not outpace inflation. But this is literally if you just divide wages by CPI. CPI is the highest measure of inflation, definitely overestimates inflation. And wages, earnings or whatever, this doesn't take into account everyone's, or this average hourly earnings. It doesn't take into account all income, right? We've seen increased non-wage compensation. Employees are a lot more likely to not have wages as compensation, but have retirement benefits, have healthcare benefits, right, provided by their employers, and that's not reflected in a lot of these measures. Even then, though, it's been a continued upward trend since 1994. And it's higher than the supposed peak in 1972. But again, I think this is a relatively poor methodology. CPI overestimates inflation, and you're underestimating compensation when you are not taking into account non-wage factors as well. And things like household size has decreased too. People have more leisure time in general nowadays. Stuff like that. What's up, Cash Plays?
Your salary hasn't been going up every year, you're
goofy little live stream for real. What's up, Pepin too?
Effectively making less money. Meanwhile, the fastest way to make $1 million is to just already have 10 million. Leave it in an investment account for a year and congratulations, you now have $11 million. At a larger scale, this is why it feels like there's two different economies happening and they're both moving in opposite. Now have $11 million. At a larger scale, this is why it feels like there's two different economies happening, and they're both
donate you $10,000. I'm sure
both moving in opposite directions. 50% of the stock market is owned by the top 1%, and only 1% is owned by the bottom 50%. Don't let somebody tell.
I've never done a deep dive into this. As far as I know, that's probably true. Like, I think there are other metrics of inequality Drew sites that are mistaken. Subscribe to my channel first. If you said you were going to donate $100 if I subscribe to your channel first, I might believe you. But when you say 10,000, see, that's just not feasibly true. Yeah, fuck, okay. But yeah, anyway, regardless, sorry. As far as I know, this metric alone is true. I just don't, like, obviously, you would expect, capital ownership to be concentrated in those who have the most capital. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You would expect, there is such a thing as, people can specialize in ownership, right? It is probably the case that many of the top 1%ers, okay, are more efficient at managing companies and stuff than the bottom 50% or whatever. Although, to Drew's point, I'm sure a lot of it is just invested in index funds that they don't actually have any control over or whatever. Cash plays, I'm gonna time you out. I'm not doing anything to your channel, brother.
Of the stock market is owned by the top 1%, and only 1% is owned by the bottom 50%. Don't let somebody tell you that these numbers going up should discredit your own lived experience. Don't let somebody who's benefited from untaxed inheritance or years of compound interest granting them passive income tell you that your problem is you're just not working hard enough. No, the real answer,
like, I don't want to say no one is doing it. I'm sure there are dipshits on Twitter who do this, okay? But, like, that's not the argument. Like, there are much more specific disagreements about that we're having here. and I have written down here, if two people, like, if me and Drew have some disagreement, like, about how well the average American family is doing or something, like, I prefer the disagreement be handled with data. I think you should look at the data. I think you should weigh the evidence we have. I'm not trying to engage in some game of discrediting people's feelings. I'm just trying to engage in some, factual disagreement about the sort of financial state of Americans. And again, most people rate their own financial situations relatively high. Be sure to pin your mom's credit card number and expiration date. Real. Solution: bringing 100 million construction workers with temporary visas and deport 30 million. Drew.
Answer is sorry. You should have been born sooner. Have you?
This is crazy because remember what I just mentioned. Oops.
Your problem is you're just not working hard enough. No, the real answer is sorry. You should have.
Like, he's talking about people's own financial states, but he's citing a poll of how people feel about the national economy. What are we doing, bro? What are we doing? Yeah, a lot of people feel worse about the national economy. It is, like, obviously, this is, younger people tend to rate it more poorly. But, like, a hypothetical other explanation, and, to be fair, like, it is some combination of the explanation I'm about to give and that conditions are maybe, getting worse for some people, right? Younger people are more likely to be on social media. They're more likely to see, I don't know, fucking videos like these and come away with the impression that the, economy's doing horrible. Oh, there's a K-shaped recovery and everyone is, everyone that's not an asset holder is doing horrible. When you ask them about their own financial situation, they tend to say that they're doing all right. Speaking of which, my own financial situation, I had an explanation for TTS in a chat, so I can buy a new Intel CPU.
Been born sooner. Have you thought about that? Maybe instead of wasting all that time farting around kindergarten class, you should have been investing in real estate. It's not my fault you're lazy. People are getting squeezed in every direction while also being gaslit into thinking that it's somehow our fault. There's CEOs in earnings calls bragging about how
oh my god,
they get to make customers pay for inflation so they don't have to. The economy.
Forgot I was this early. Bro, he cites, by the way, it's just the worst. Like, he cites More Perfect Union like three times in this video too. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Somehow, it's not my fault you're lazy. People are
If
getting
there's a supply shock,
squeezed in every direction,
as there
while
were
also being
in COVID,
gaslit
obviously,
into thinking that it's somehow our fault. There's
obviously many companies are going to pass that price on to consumers, and actually you would generally expect in more competitive markets, more of the cost is going to be passed on to the consumer, and in less competitive markets, there'd actually be less cost passed on to the consumer because firms face like a reputational risk, right? So I think there's data, for example, during COVID when people were making masks, companies that stayed in the market longer, companies that had some reputation, and they were making COVID masks, their markups were lower than companies that only existed for a short while, right? And could actually raise prices and not face any reputational damage because they didn't plan on staying in a market for that long. And I think just generally there's not a ton of evidence that firms actually just have that much price setting power during COVID. Like I think I need to go through and sort through some of these notes or whatever. It doesn't seem like markups like substantially increased even during COVID. I swear there's a paper that I want to cite here. I don't think it's this. I think this is longer term than just the COVID stuff.
CEOs in earnings calls bragging about how they get to make customers pay for inflation so they don't have to. The economy is so bad right now, I'm about to segue into an extremely ill-timed brand deal in a video about greed. You think I like looking like a hypocrite?
Well, we're skipping it.
I think you're now 30-day money back for scanning the QR code on the screen. But don't scan me. It's not going to do anything. I'm just a guy. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring this video. The economy sucks ass for most people right now. The only
True. Oh, you know what? I bet it's in my fucking greedflation note shit and not the price theory stuff. Yeah, there are a number of things here. Oh, now I have too many studies. No, I don't know. I don't know. At best, you could cite is it Elizabeth Werner or whoever who says that sometimes supply shocks might have operated as some implicit price coordination mechanism, but that is pretty far from individual firms having price setting power, having persistent price setting power. You would not expect after the supply shock goes away for them to maintain that amount of price setting power even.
The reason we're not technically in a recession is because the GDP is still going up. But the only reason the GDP is still going up is because of the AI industry. But the only reason that even looks as good as it does is because a handful of companies are just like passing money back and forth. But there's no recession.
There's like a little bit of truth to that. Obviously, GDP is something that is considered for determining whether or not we're in a recession. Like a lot of people consider a recession just to be 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. Now, that is not the only thing that is considered, though. Just you wonder what's happening. We're talking about slop economics right now, bro. I don't know. But like, for example, we initially had, it was later revised up, but in 2022 we did initially have 2 negative quarters of GDP growth in a row. But there was not, the NBER did not state that we were in a recession because the labor market was doing really good at that time. Unemployment was only at it was under 4%, right? So it's a little weird to say we're in a recession when unemployment is that low. So it's not the only thing that is considered, but it is true that it is also true that AI is contributing significantly to GDP growth right now. But it's not 100% clear to me that that's totally unwarranted. Like there is at least a possibility that AI will represent like a genuinely meaningful like increase in productivity and stuff that will actually prove that there was no bubble. Okay, but I don't know. It's not where I'd place my bets right now. I will say that. we're pretty obviously in a recession. Easy money. I don't think that's obvious. Like, I don't think it's entirely unreasonable to argue that there's a decent risk of going into a recession like next year, but I don't believe, like, unemployment's still under 5%. Like, payroll growth is not recession level horrifying, right? GDP growth is actually pretty strong, at least last time I checked, unless there's some new news there. But I think if you look at GDP now, it's like close to 4%, right? 3.9%, yeah.
Question. You're hallucinating that. Because the AI industry is now single-handedly propping up the entire global economy, there's really only two paths forward. Worst case scenario, turns out it is all bullshit. The bubble pops in spectacular fashion, trillions of dollars of investments cannot get paid out, and everything goes up in flames. Or best case scenario, a few billionaires get even richer. Wait, is that what we're hoping for? All right, you're gonna have to bear.
True. Obviously, those are not the only two. Like it's not. So if AI, works out or whatever, you would expect consumers to benefit a lot as well. Consumers already are benefiting from AI. I think there's some estimate of GDP or whatever. I don't put like a ton of stock in this estimate, to be clear, but I think they don't have the amount in the abstract. Basically, they did surveys and they asked a lot of people who use AI, like, kind of how much would you have to be paid to not use AI, and to use that to sort of calculate the benefit consumers are getting from AI right now. And it was like 180 billion or something. GDP AI. This says 160 billion, but yeah. GDP is driven entirely by AI and old people healthcare. Most states are in a recession. It is concerning that most of, I don't even think what's the last month of job numbers we have? It's actually completed and disaggregate or whatever. Like, I recognize a lot of job growth is in healthcare, and that's concerning. What does this even mean? $23 states are now in a, like, does this mean have had 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP? Moody Analytics chief economist, Mark Sandy. Also, it's not entirely okay. Easy money. This seems like a slop thing as well. This is a... Is this a... No, this looks like an actual, okay, like, decent, like, think tank. Okay, I thought it was gonna be another. I thought it was gonna be what Drew had earlier, if like a hedge fund. Okay, but no, it seems like it's a actual thing. But I'm not sure. What on earth does he mean by recession? State-level data makes it clear why the U.S. economy is on the edge of recession. Based on my assessment of various data, states making up nearly a third of the U.S. GDP are either in or at high risk of recession. Another third are holding steady. What's the base rate here? It's not to be predicting previous recessions. This is my assessment of where state economies are in their business cycle based on various coincident measures of economic activity, e.g. payroll and household employment, industrial production. If this were a coincident measure has fallen in a consistent way, I would consider the state economy to be in or at significant risk of recession. Measure not meant to be predictive. We've also constructed leading recession indicators based on a machine learning algorithm. True. Okay. The standard definition doesn't. This does not look like the standard definition. I'm unclear what this even means exactly. Like, fallen in a consistent way. How much? Like, I don't know. I'd want to see a little bit more of the methodology. I don't really. So is he like? Is he weighting these? Like, is he saying if payroll growth declined by 5%, I'm gonna weight that by also. I'm gonna multiply by how much industrial production declined as well, and if it reaches some threshold or has been falling in a consistent way, it's gonna be in or at risk of recession. Yes. Okay. I don't think that's not really the standard definition, right? Like the NBR, when they are declaring recessions, they're not doing that. I mean they're primarily looking at GDP. That's not the only thing they consider, but also AI is only a fifth of GDP. Okay, because a lot of the AI stuff is it's imported, and those don't add to GDP. Those are neutral. Well, in themselves are neutral. They can contribute to an overall increase in GDP, but the actual import itself is neutral.
Bear with me while I go on another AI rant here. I know I do this like every 6 months, but it's not going away. It doesn't count as beating a dead horse if the horse is still alive. We got to kill that horse first. People largely do not like AI and are worried about the future it imposes. It's currently being used to make a bunch of promises that almost no one asked for. The main appeal of it comes from corporations who see advancements in AI as a way to further reduce their dependence on human labor. The only thing cheaper than outsourcing jobs is just eliminating them altogether. The wet dream.
Like, bro, like, what is the distinguishing factor here? And like, I don't, like, maybe Drew holds this position too, that like distinguishes this majorly from any other type of automation. Like, yeah, companies, they do want to reduce costs at the end of the day, right? And a lot of times that comes through automation, but that represents growth. That represents doing more things, producing more things with less. And it tends to be the case that, that leads to creative destruction. People, obviously there are, layoffs, and there are losers in a sense that some people lose their jobs. But the workers that remain probably see a wage increase because they're more productive, and because average productivity rises too. You would imagine average worker wages are going to rise. Every other firm in the market has to compete with the now more productive employees. Consumers are obviously going to benefit as well from any added productivity that either reduces prices or increases the volume that consumers buy. Like, this is overwhelmingly good thing. This is how we have achieved rising living standards throughout all the history. If you want to say, like, conceivably AI, if it gets good enough, would be able to, it would lead to some type of net job loss, because unlike other stuff, when computers might have destroyed jobs in some sectors but created jobs in other sectors, AI is just going to be able to replace so many humans that it's not going to lead to a net job increase, or it's going to lead to net job losses. Then there's a concern there about how we to get income to people who just can't work or whatever. And I would just argue for some type of UBI. I think a system with redistribution is far preferable to a system where we keep ourselves artificially poor for the sake of, like, shitting on them evil corporations who just wanted to replace their laborers. Like, no, I want us to be rich. I want living standards to rise. Okay, and that's gonna have to involve some type of government welfare in the case of, like, AI literally replacing a lot of workers, but that's still preferable to the way worse alternative.
That soils the sheets of every CEO is a company that's somehow run entirely on its own, and they can just sit back and collect all the profits for themselves. No more dealing with pesky labor laws or health insurance or, can I have Saturday off? My family died. No! Shut up. That's the eventual goal,
Real.
and why they're all pouring billions of dollars into NVIDIA chips and data centers and cool shirts for Mark Zuckerberg. And in the meantime, we're stuck with ChatGPT, a humanized Google search designed to affirm whatever belief you share with it, even if it's incredibly dangerous, or generative video apps that are already being used to trick people into thinking something happened that didn't actually happen. Awesome technology. I'm so glad this exists. And I think the best thing
There is a, like, I would agree with Drew a little bit. I share the concern that AI is going to be used for disinformation and stuff, and I think we've already seen that, and already some extent that sucks. But, like, you know, I'm also a fucking video editor. I love the AI tools I have. Like, and it's not inconceivable that within the next 5 years, you know, there's going to be AI editors good enough that I barely have to do any work, and that'd be amazing. Like, that'd make me more productive. That'd make my life easier and better. I'd benefit a lot from that. I don't know if Drew still edits his own videos, but presumably there's a lot of, like, AI editing tools that he would like to use as well. Every, like, workflow or whatever already involves some automated, you know, tools, like especially with audio. If you just import audio to Premiere Pro, almost everyone. I was freaking out with Destiny, but I am going to watch the vegans if they COVID, okay? You know, I skimmed through part of it, and that maybe I missed a relevant point of Destiny's argument, but it just seemed confused to me. But maybe the guy he was talking to is making some weird, bad defensive veganism, and it made sense in that context. Funimation is headed towards a post-labor scarcity type world. Do you support the idea of taxing firms based on how many jobs they delete, or is there a better solution? Yeah, I mean, I think there'd probably be a better solution. Like, I'm not 100%. Oh, what's up, North? Is this the billionaires destroying the world video? Yeah, basically. North was live. What happened to North is live? Yeah, like, I think it probably, like, it's just better. It's just best to do whatever is the least economically damaging tax, and there's probably a less damaging tax economically than taxing companies based on the number of jobs they automate or whatever. It'd probably just be taxing, taxing as much rent as possible, right? Economic rents, unearned, unproductive payments, or whatever. And you can do that for DBCFT, and you might be able to. You know, I guess the problem with a consumption tax in the post-labor scarcity world, right, would be that a lot of the revenue the consumption tax would raise would have to be from the government transfer income to people who aren't working. But yeah, you could do some type of consumption tax still. But do you support UBI? Probably. Some type of negative income tax UBI seems preferable to our welfare system we have now.
Thing we can do to fight back against AI is to simply not engage with it. The problem is, even if you don't use these tools, if you live in certain parts of the country, you might be paying for them. There's been a lot of really good investigative
This part's fucking stupid, bro.
Journalism done on all these new data centers that are popping up around the country. Who's funding them and who's getting screwed over in the process? For example, some residents in New Jersey who noticed that their power bill kept going up, even though they were actually using less electricity than usual. Well, it turns out it's due to an overall supply cost. Basically, when the total amount of electricity used in an area goes up, power companies tend to pass those higher costs on to their customers. And for the past several years, electricity usage has been skyrocketing, with over half of that increase coming solely from data centers. Your utility.
There is, like, there's a point you can make that's like fine, it and good or whatever, and I would agree with Drew on. And so far, like, I don't entirely disagree with the stuff he said, but what he's about to say next just makes me. I don't want to say discount what he said previously, but it just makes me view what he's saying here, what I agree with, like, in an incredibly different lens. So, I mean, the first thing I'll note, you know, it does seem to be the case that it doesn't necessarily, from evidence we have historically, sort of growth, economic growth, and like it increase in demand for electricity, not that we've seen as big of an increase or whatever, leads to some, you know, incredible rise in electricity costs. Like, I think this is a study from 2024. There's one part of it that I want to find, but it doesn't seem like there's any big correlation between that price change and, you know, load growth. Now, they're going to be, obviously it's going to be affected sort of on the margin, by which by how much load growth is, and AI could pull a lot of it. Now, if you think there's going to be some benefits from AI, the trade-off could be worth it if you're like Drew and just think AI sucks and is evil and it's going to replace all of us and kill all the artists or whatever. Then I understand why you might not care about that. But also, you would expect supply is at least somewhat elastic in the long run. You would expect that electricity companies are going to increase the supply of electricity, and they are prices are going to come back down later. And you do already see both Google and Microsoft, I know, are investing in nuclear power plants to try to power their own data centers. So you already do see some evidence of the electricity supply expanding. This is Derek Thompson. Data centers and AI are gobbling up electricity, but the shares differ significantly by state. Between 2010 and 2025, data centers went from less than 5% to roughly 40% of electricity. What is this supposed to show? Easy money? I agree. AI uses a lot of electricity.
Bill is going up because Elon Musk wants to pretend to have a girlfriend. You see, AI doesn't just exist in some theoretical space. It has to be trained on...
I also love the AI is it's gonna replace all these laborers, and you already see, he was insinuating earlier, unemployment is low for college graduates because AI is fucking taking their jobs or whatever. But also the only purpose of AI is for Elon Musk to pretend he has a girlfriend. Actually, it's okay, only one of these things can really be true. Either AI is just useless, or it's useful enough for companies to automate many tasks with it. So,
on trillions of gigabytes of data, and that data has to be stored in a physical location. To power this, it requires an absurd amount of electricity, which generates an absurd amount of heat, which then requires an absurd amount of water to cool off. Most of these buildings use over 1 million gallons per day, roughly the equivalent of 10,000 people. This would be even more problematic if they were being built in areas where water is extremely scarce. So we should be good as long as we don't build a bunch of them in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, you can see this was the fucking thing. Contrary to these concerns, our analysis finds state-level load growth in recent years has led to reduced electricity prices. States with highest load growth experienced reductions in real prices, whereas states with contracting loads generally saw prices rise. Now, there are other, obviously, it's going to be hard to determine which things are causing which here. You can imagine, companies are building data centers in the places where there are less regulations for electricity, new electricity supply to be added, right? And that would cause both, price reductions and more load growth in states where there are just less regulations to start to expand electricity supply. And so I'm not suggesting it's causal. I'm very clear that if you increase the demand for electricity, that load growths or that prices are not going to go up. But I don't think it's clear that the concern Drew has is existential or anything. You think an AI bubble collapse will lead to an energy sector collapse because they both feed on each other? Energy sector wouldn't collapse because there's always going to be a relatively stable amount of demand for electricity. But it would I don't know. I guess I don't know. I think that so there are probably a lot of electricity companies whose stock price and stuff is high, their valuation is high because people expect in the future for AI and data centers to use a lot more electricity. I guess I don't know though, how many existing assets are used for that and how many existing assets that are actually built and stuff would go unused if the AI bubble burst and data centers didn't draw electricity anymore. Because I doubt there's been that much expansion in the electricity supply in response to data centers at this point. So I would expect the stock price to collapse, but they would still have a lot of underlying assets that are actually built, physical capital, that would be valuable and still supplying energy to consumers who are always gonna use roughly the same amount.
Desert. Whoops. But to be fair, they are...
Forgive me if I'm way off here, but if automation deleting jobs outpace new jobs being added for long enough time, wouldn't we need something to replace the huge hit to our inlays from losing a bunch of FICA money? Yeah, probably. I guess maybe there's a scenario. Well, I guess we cap the FICA payment, right? I was gonna say like maybe there's a scenario where AI makes the remaining workers so much more productive that they're paid so much and there's so much competition for the few skilled workers that remain that they still pay in enough. But I guess we cap FICA stuff, so that probably not. But yeah, that's the idea behind tax per position removed or whatever unit of productivity. It would ideally be easy replacement. Well, yeah. So like I don't think I don't think payroll taxes are optimal either, right? So if it's just from the standpoint of like what is literally the optimal tax code, it's like, well, I'm just going to do what I think damages growth like the least, or it changes incentives the least. And I think any tax on sort of the hiring or displacement of labor would be not preferable to just a tax on resource extraction or consumption or any of the other things that might not distort investment and labor market decisions as much.
Extremely efficient about it. They don't just use the water, they also poison it. Every part of this process is wasteful and destructive, and this is only the beginning. AI is still a relatively new phenomenon, so
if I were smart, I would have read through this earlier. I think people way over-exaggerate the AI water usage, so over the course of a day, if you compare to a glass of water, but it neglects how much water Americans typically use. On average, Americans use 1,600 liters of water a day, enough for 800,000 ChatGPT prompts. A lot of this is through agriculture, showers, and energy use. Lots of things routinely use millions more water than a prompt. See, for example, leather shoes, 4 million prompts worth of water. Smartphones, 6.4 million prompts. Jeans, 5.4 million prompts. T-shirts, 1.3 million prompts. Single sheet of paper, 2,550 prompts. Yeah, a lot. In fact, AI probably reduces water use. If people spend more time prompting ChatGPT, that's time they're not spending on activities that require a lot more water. On a national level, data centers, which mostly power the internet and are only partially used for AI, use only 0.2% of water. Americans spend about half their time online, and so the internet uses vastly less energy per hour than other things. Golf alone uses 10 times as much water as all data centers. And he has a nice chart that illustrates how little water is used by data centers compared to other stuff. Prices are still high. The labor market is garbage. Easy money, like prices are still high, but I care about real prices, right? I don't care about nominal prices. And like I depending on what you look at, real prices are not higher than they were in 2019. For services, it's not true. I don't know if that's true it might not be true for food. For a number of things. I want to say the labor market is garbage. There are mass layoffs every month. That's true of the U.S. economy always. I don't know what you mean by mass layoffs. Overall, it doesn't look like layoffs are particularly high right now. I think there's more reason to be increasingly concerned. Drew actually mentions it in the video, so I think I have somewhere down here. It's just the Fred chart of layoffs and the thing he cites. Like this is layoffs and discharges. It's not like a especially concerning trend to me. Although Drew did cite this there's a report from Goldman Sachs or whatever, which just it just warns like in 60 days. It seems like companies and earnings calls have announced they're gonna look to be doing more layoffs. It's just that probably won't happen for another 60 days at least. More people are taking SSRIs. I don't see how you can think we aren't in a recession because GDP growth is strong. Labor market seems not garbage. Again, layoffs is not concerning. SSRIs is that really a recession indicator? Technically, wouldn't you expect? How elastic is the demand for SSRIs? I like if people are broke, if people are poor, they're not going to be buying SSRIs, right? I don't know how elastic the demand for it is, but
we're only just starting to see the effects of this. But the Department of Energy projects that
a single hamburger uses about 600 gallons of water. So eating a single hamburger is 1 million more times worse for water than prompting AI. Like, bro.
That the percentage of electricity used by data centers could nearly triple in just the next 3 years. And who gets to pay for it? We do. It's hard for me to accurately express how infuriating this is. The giant buildings that power this stupid fucking technology are being subsidized by people who just happen to live near them. Oh, but hold on, because they're...
This shit is, like I said, what Drew said about energy use and water use, or I don't think the water use is that valid, but the energy use is not like entirely unreasonable. But then we go on to say
being subsidized by people who just happen to live near them. Oh, but hold on.
Data centers, the electricity for them is being subsidized by people who happen to live near them. It's just because they pay more in electricity when the demand for electricity shifts outwards. That's not what a subsidy is. Almost like so many things would be a subsidy, that like anytime you pay more, because like if I, like, for example, DDR5 RAM is really expensive right now, partially because a lot of AI companies are trying to buy both RAM and like some of the sort of underlying shit to make RAM. Am I fucking subsidizing NVIDIA and AI companies when I buy DDR5 RAM at high prices? That's not what a subsidy is. I don't think it counts as SSRI, but non-SSRI antidepressants are also popping off. Yeah, like I don't know. I don't know how elastic the demand is, but technically, I would, if the recession got bad enough, okay, there would be some margin at which people's income would be low enough such that they would not want to purchase SSRIs anymore. But I would imagine most people on SSRIs are relatively price inelastic. They're gonna buy them almost, they're gonna be one of the last things they give up. But
because they're technically contributing to the operating costs. So does that mean that they get to share in the eventual profits? No, of course not. They're more like involuntary investors doing it for,
like, what, technically contributing to the operating cost? What is that? They're just not. If your point is just that, in theory, an electricity company could only charge data centers and just not charge households anything, like, I guess I guess electricity companies are choosing not to engage in price discrimination to some degree, but also, prices are signals, okay? They change incentives. If presumably, again, I understand Drew doesn't think AI has many benefits, but like, if a bunch of fucking AI companies need electricity and a lot of consumers are willing to pay for AI use, like, you would want electricity to go towards AI use because consumers are benefiting a lot from it. What do prices signal? Well, everything. They signal local knowledge, don't you know? Oh boy. The asset class needs to pay for their filthy rent seekers. Being filthy rent seekers, their day will come true. I think Drew's actually right for the wrong reasons. It's not a demand issue. Data centers require infrastructure upgrades, which the utility company passes on to all consumers, not just the company. Well, sure, but again, I guess, like, I think it's also the case that there's probably some companies that, like, companies probably could price discriminate based on, or like RAM companies could price discriminate. But I want to say I'm subsidizing NVIDIA just because I pay more for DDR5 RAM when AI companies also demand it
for free, or really worse than free, because a lot of them are being kept awake at night by the deafening hum endlessly emitting from the factory shoved into the backyard of their homes that have now surely plummeted in value as a result. But hey, at least they're doing all of this to make a product that hopes to replace 80% of humanity. It's not enough that these people already own everything they could ever want. They could so easily afford to pay for these things without even noticing that that money is gone. But why would they do that when they could simply have poor people pay for it instead? Because
True.
Nothing will ever be enough for them. When a rich person makes
like
some shady deal to save, without even noticing that money is gone. But why would they do that? Afford to pay for these things without even,
like, first of all, insofar as you want the billionaire class to be altruistic or whatever, okay, they should clearly be donating their money to the third world, okay, and have them pay market prices for the stuff here, then donate the money to the third world, people in desperate extreme poverty, rather than you know, giving it to you know, not to, you know, paying their workers for or whatever in first world countries. Cringe. Oh no, the hecking homeowners. All those poor homeowners, for real.
Not even noticing that that money is gone. But why would they do that when they could simply have poor people pay for it instead? Because nothing will ever be enough for them. You know, when a rich person makes some shady deal to screw over the working class, people will joke that they just need that money to buy their 4th yacht. And like, I don't even think it's that. They could buy 1,000 yachts and still not run out of money. They don't want to spend their wealth. They just want it to get bigger. It's the same obsession with seeing number go up that keeps
this part. One of like 3 things in this video I agree with. I think a lot of billionaires are like egotistical people who just want more money because they want to see their wealth increase, even though it doesn't actually benefit them very much. Ideally, they would give all their money to charity. Okay, so
keeps me addicted to old school
effective third world charities.
Except the only life that's ruining is my own. What they have is a disease. They have been scourged with the blight of insatiable greed, cursed to an endless pursuit of wealth that will never.
But I also love Factorio, so I get it. Yeah, exactly.
It's bring them true happiness. I would almost feel bad for them if they weren't actively destroying the world in the process. One of the most frustrating things about this problem is that if you even try to suggest that maybe these guys should just have a little bit less money, like you guys can still be rich, whatever, just turn it down a notch because you're kind of making shit terrible for everybody else. You're treated like you're crazy. No.
This framing gets increasingly crazy the later on he goes into the more he talks later on in the video, because it seems like he does the exact same things, and it will get there to people who support capitalism and are just evil bootlickers, okay, who will go out and defend it even if it's not working for them. But like, I don't know, man. I just try to look at like evidence. I try to assess whether things are net benefits or not. It seems like there's very reasonable disagreement to be had there. I don't think it's crazy for me to say something like, oh, I don't think a wealth tax would be particularly efficient, and I think most of the evidence we have doesn't, you know, shows that it probably would not even reduce inequality that much, and you know, just would not be administratively efficient, and there are better options. I'm sure there are dipshits on Twitter who do what Drew was saying, but come on, man. No one well believe in capitalism going I'm assuming going forward if conditions continue. True. What the hell do you think? Like, Easy Buddy, don't you just say, is your position that deflation is the solution? Like, I don't know what you mean by conditions. How are we to improve conditions? Okay, buddy. Like, I don't think voters would actually be happy if what they claim to want to happen is that, like, what actually came true, because I think deflation would have a lot of other negative effects, obviously. If you consult the evidence, you'll discover in natura calculation is necessary. I know, in natura. Is this an econometric term? I don't know. There's some other term. Just in nature. Do you just mean natural experiments? Oh, what's up, Gavin? Exactly. Conditions are getting worse. Based on what, Gavin? And the current system keeps getting defended. Okay.
This is the American way. If you don't like it, then leave. And yet these ideas aren't radical. They're not even new. Most people who advocate for a more progressive tax system are only calling for a return to something that used to exist in this country. We just forgot about it. So I think it's important to do.
By the way, that might have been true 10 years ago. I don't even believe this is true anymore. With all the maybe my brain is broken because I'm on social media too much. I don't even believe this is true. Okay, I feel like at least most young people nowadays want to way more substantive change than even that even Drew's picture of the 1960s, 40s, 70s. You know, he's gonna paint here, but
a little history lesson.
Got an ad off a 240 vid of a Brazilian guy yelling Anatoly for 15 seconds. The algorithm thinks your viewers are losing it. Most of them are, okay? Most of them are.
If you can believe it, there was a time where the working class in this country actually had it really good. And it was mostly because things got so bad during the Great Depression that the government was worried about the country collapsing. Thousands of banks had closed, millions of people lost their entire life savings, unemployment peaked at 25%. So in fear of a revolution happening, the government was like, all right, fine, we'll give you livable wages. Just please put that musket down. I don't like the way you're looking at me. So the New Deal was born, and with it came Social Security, better labor standards, the right to unionize, a national minimum wage, an 8-hour workday. And over the next 2 to 3 decades, America became the most prosperous country on earth. Productivity was born, and
I just hate. I don't think you should be making this broad of statements with no citations. With like it's all memes. It's all memes, bro. It's all memes. It's all memes. It's all memes. Okay, like 30-second explanation of fucking Great Depression. I fucking love slop econ history. It's like
musket down.
Not all of it is 100% wrong.
I don't like the way you're looking at me. So the New Deal was
at the very least
born, and with it came.
It's not at all clear that many of the New Deal reforms were sort of causally responsible for
3 decades. America became.
Or the welfare programs. Bro, you can't feel the vibes. Yeah, I know it is a fucking virus analysis. For the productivity growth and like extremely high like GDP growth we saw, post World War II.
Country on Earth. Productivity skyrocketed and wages rose.
Wages versus productivity, guys, did the gap. We'll get to it, right?
With them. Extra profits weren't just redistributed to employees, but their employers were proud to do it. They would brag about how.
And also, like, this is remember when I was talking to Owen, guys, like. It's not like we got rid of all those New Deal programs, okay? Like, this is just public social spending as a percent of GDP. These have slightly different methodologies between them. But, like, the data for 1940 is probably not that great. But, like, since, 1960, it's been going up. The OECD also has a thing. Which doesn't let you make a nice graph, but like you can see percent of GDP right now it's 19%, or 2024 is 19%. If we go back to 1980, 12%. That graph is fine, by the way. The glows with soy out. The glows with soy out, but the iNet graph is like a 7 out of 10 graph. The productivity and pay graph.
Lucrative.
Read my last message. Where? Oh, most young people want socialism or remigration. I agree. Things have gotten so bad that people are going for extreme and dumb ideas. Well, I think, again, a lot of it has to do with not just actual conditions, but our perceptions that are influenced by social media, for example. Social protection spending as a share of GDP is like 30. Relatively stable since 2007. Doesn't go back before that. I think this is pretty broad though. But yeah, it includes defense spending, which I'm sure Drew would have an objection to.
If it was to work for them. Look, 37% of profits went to our employees last year because this is a team effort, and when we win, they win. In 1943, Johnson & Johnson puts out this mission statement that's like, here's our list of priorities in order. Customers number 1, we got to make good products. Employees number 2, everyone who works here needs to feel valued and respected. Our community number 3, we all want to live in a better world, and as a company of our size, we feel like it's our responsibility to contribute to that however we can. And finally, all the way at the bottom, our shareholders can just have whatever's left. Of course, we need to make a profit to
no, by the way, like you could like he could at least like cite like the labor share of income declining, like that is a thing, like that has happened. But it's all vibes. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you could still like,
we all want to live in
you could find corporate speak like this today. In the US, especially, like how many fucking oil companies have a ton of shit they do to try to better their image by saying, oh, we're gonna invest a bajillion quadrillion percent in renewable energies and clean up after all these natural disasters. Walmart and Amazon both love to brag about how they like pay their workers minimum $15 an hour. It's all vibes. Nestle CEO believes water isn't a human right based. It's not just perceptions. Gavin, that okay. I don't. First of all, I don't know what am I comparing to? What percent of CEOs historically didn't believe that water was a human right? You know, I bet as a percent of CEOs, more CEOs today believe water is a human right than believed water is a human right back in 1960. I bet that's probably true, because I bet on average CEOs are more, or have gotten like more, maybe not even just more left leaning, but more, you know, they accept positive rights more. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong in that, but my vibes would tell me that the average American has probably gotten more collectivist, more egalitarian than they were in the 60s.
In a better world, and as
I mean, it seems like just in general, people have gotten more socially progressive, and I would imagine that tracks decently with, you know, what I just said. But what's up, Tron? A funny thing would be to ask a person, what time would you rather be a worker in? Let one pick and explain, then explain metric that was better. Yeah. But don't you know, Drew eventually does get to the single family income meme, by the way. It's like, kill me.
Company of our size, we feel like it's our responsibility to contribute to that however we can. And finally, all the way at the bottom, our shareholders can just have whatever's left. Of course, we need to make a profit to survive and grow, but that should just come naturally as a byproduct of focusing on these three tenets. Compared to modern corporate standards, this is all such a foreign concept that it almost sounds like it's coming from a fictional universe. But this actually happened. This was just America 70 years ago. Now, during this time, what do you think the tax...
I posted this on Twitter, so some of y'all might know what's about to go down. Oh my god. Pay attention to the distinction he draws here.
Tax rate was on the wealthiest Americans. For reference, in 2025, the highest income tax bracket is supposed to be around 24%, but because of how many ways there are to circumvent the rules, it often ends up being as little as 3%.
So he's drawing a distinction there between what the top rate is supposed to be, what's called the nominal rate or the statutory rate, what it's supposed to be, versus what people actually pay. The effective rate is what that's called. So there's a distinction between what people are supposed to pay today and what they actually pay today.
For someone like Elon Musk, who doesn't take a salary from Tesla and instead just owns a large percentage of its stock, as long as he doesn't sell any of that stock, then technically there's no income to tax him on. Now, he can still leverage the value of those stocks to make purchases, you know, like how money works, but it's still not taxable because of the rules. This is how people like
him... Now, they do... It's the statutory tax rate for the tax rate for minors. This is true. Yes, it is.
And Jeff Bezos.
Fuck Darko.
Like how money works, but it's still not taxable because of...
Oh, this is kind of true, but for one, they have to pay back a loan of after-tax income. For two, although of course they can get relatively favorable loans and everything. Consumption tax would literally fix this, by the way. For three, did I link this here even? Oh yeah, there's this paper. I have not read this paper. I should read this paper. It doesn't seem like buy, borrow, die actually happens that often. It seems like billionaires just save a lot of their money. And, you know, we obviously we tax income and not wealth. So if you just have a lot of wealth but not income, you're just not taxed that much. Okay, but hey, now if I want to watch some real egregious content, watch fights from is that a college or something, or city? If you even go by year, maybe you could argue 2024 is better than 2025 in terms of American metrics. I mean, it probably, I don't know if 2024 is better than 2025. You might be able to argue for at least some, maybe if you're like the bottom 20%, maybe 2019 was better. Maybe, I don't know. Is, you know, Drew has a PhD? I don't believe he does, but if he does, it's don't believe it's definitely not in economics. Deficits and concerns about tax avoidance by the rich increase. We study how unrealized gains in borrowing affect Americans' income taxes. We have four major findings. First, measuring economic income. As currently, Drew has electoral degree from GMU. Doctoral degree, sorry, true. I thought I was reading. Measuring economic income as currently taxed income plus new unrealized gains, the income tax base captures 60% of economic income of the top 1% of wealth holders and 71% adjusting for inflation, and the vast majority of income for lower wealth groups. Second, adjusting for unrealized gains substantially lessens the degree of progressivity in the income tax, although it remains largely progressive. Third, we quantify for the first time the amount of borrowing across the full wealth distribution. Focusing on the top 1%, while total borrowing is substantial, new borrowing each year is fairly small, 1 to 2% of economic income, compared to their new unrealized gains, suggesting that buy, borrow, die is not a dominant tax avoidance strategy for the rich. Fourth, consumption is less than liquid for rich Americans, partly because the rich have a large amount of liquid income, and partly because their savings rates are high, suggesting that the main tax avoidance strategy of the rich is buy, save, die. He's a real doctoral degree in macroeconomics from Harvard. He has been recognized by 12 nations as a leading expert in internet shopping systems. Real. He's a corporate YouTuber who gets a surprising amount of views. Do I care about him? Defends the worst kind of racism. Okay, great.
The rules. This is
I'm not joking.
how people like him and Jeff Bezos can be, in terms of net worth, two of the richest people on the planet, and in some years pay $0 in tax. In the middle of the 20th century, the tax rate on the ultra wealthy was not 3% or 20% or even 50%. It was between 70 and 94%. It honestly
So notice here,
been 50%.
what he's citing is just the statutory rate. When earlier he said, the statutory rate, the nominal rate, is supposed to be 25%, but they only actually pay, less than 3% or whatever. Which, by the way, I don't think that's true either. But now we just memory hold that. We just memory hold that. Even Saez and Zuckman, okay, which are the progressive side of this issue, okay. By the way, we agree wealth inequality is an instrumental bad, right? Probably. We probably disagree on how bad it is, but yeah. I mean, I do and Drew talked about this in a video at some point too. Certainly, the effects on democracy are probably the most concerning thing there, right? I don't necessarily agree that degrowth is bad. I don't think our life should be based on working as much as possible. That's not even what growth, anti-degrowth is or whatever. Then consuming as much as possible, then repeat. It's a good break from that cycle. True. You'd expect like leisure time, like average leisure time is only increased with growth. But yeah, this is, so if you look at the actual effective tax rate, this is considering all the taxes that the rich paid, including on the state level, including corporate taxes for all the wealth they have entangled in whatever corporate holdings they have. That peaked at where Drew's graph says roughly 90-ish%. The effective rate peaked at roughly 45%. This is again according to Saez Zuckman. And it has been going downwards, but it's only, down to, right about 35% in 2014. I don't know if they have an updated paper. And this is probably the highest reasonable estimate of effective rates that you're going to get. I think, obviously David Flinter and, Auten, Gerald Auten have their disagreements at stock buybacks, but I'm perfectly fine with going with Saez and Zuckman here because it just still doesn't. It's so crazy that he makes a distinction between nominal rates and effective rates today, but just completely forgets that and doesn't mention it historically. Just that the poor are made better off by gains in income than the wealthy. Yeah, obviously there's diminishing marginal utility to income and wealth. So yeah,
between 7
I do genuinely believe that many billionaires are don't even get happier with the added wealth they make and are just doing it because they are fucking, I don't want to say mentally ill. Some of them probably, well, Elon Musk is definitely mentally ill, but are fucking mental and are just doing it for the love for the love of the game or whatever. But also even and like they should donate more of their money. Absolutely. Because like they just get like at some point you get like almost no fucking utility to your wealth, dog. It is not the case that I don't think that effective rate is this is for top 400. You know, even according to again Sias Luckman, it's not 3%. This is 24%. David Splinter, I forget the big differences in assumptions he makes because he's commenting on the how much the billionaires pay in tax or whatever. I forget what exactly the different assumptions between that paper and this paper are here. But he has his disagreements and says that it's actually 38%. And then he adds in, if you add in charitable giving and end-of-life giving, it's higher. But like, seems a little silly to include. That's not really. I don't think that's what people really want to measure when they're talking about this. So that seems a little silly to me. Tax rich equals more funding. I feel like this is very simple. True. Well, Gavin, like obviously, I don't think that taxing the wealthy wouldn't raise revenue. I think that you should try to raise the amount of revenue you want to raise in the most efficient way possible. And I favor progressive tax system to do that, by the way. I just don't think a strictly like a wealth tax is the best way to do that, right? They can afford healthcare for all their people. I'm not sure if that's the deciding thing for Massachusetts, but it certainly is not the case that, like, even if you confiscated the wealth of all billionaires, I think you could maybe fund Medicare for all for like 5 years or something. I don't think it would be that much because I know, you know, the meme number or whatever. I mean, this is true, but it's a meme that people say a lot. Like, if you confiscated the wealth of every billionaire, all of it, in the U.S., you could fund the entire U.S. government for less than a year. So if you just look at like health spending as a percent of U.S. budget, I believe it's close to, it's like 10-20% or something. This is just healthcare expenditures. Where's it as a percent of our budget? Health spending is 30%. Is it really 30%? So even if you just wanted to fund like Medicare for all, you probably cannot do it for that long. And that's you know, you can only confiscate all their wealth once. Anyway, hold on, just real quick. I want the differing assumptions. U.S. tax system has a progressive effective tax rates increase from 2% for the bottom quintile of income to 45% for the top 100th of the 1%, but rates may be lower among those with highest wealth. This comment starts with the top 400 tax rate estimates in Balkir, Saez, Yegan, and Zuckman, and adjusts these to account for Forbes family wealth being spread across multiple tax returns to avoid double counting capital income, to include missing taxes, and to apply standard tax and income definitions. This results in top 400 effective tax rates exceeding to overall tax rates by 13 percentage points. Still, the top 400 tax rate is lower than for the top hundredths of the 1%, suggesting a modest decline in effective tax rates at the very top when ranking by wealth. However, this is an unsurprising deviation from progressive tax rates because the tax system targets income, not wealth. Compared with annual estimates in BSYZ, longer run estimates are more appropriate for top wealth groups which have volatile wealth and concentrate charitable giving into end-of-life bequest. End-of-life giving suggests long-run effective tax rate. I mean, I think it's a little silly to lump the end-of-life giving in with the effective tax rate. I will say that, but at least they're giving some of their money. Scambot kind of followed your advice and put the different. What happened? What does effective tax rate include stuff like sales tax? Yeah, not. I mean, sales tax is going to be a very low percentage of the effective tax of the tax you actually pay for any like rich person, billionaire or whatever. But they did it in 2006 and it's still in effect because billionaires make money somehow. It's not just it's not like they're just saving LMFAO. They make most of their money by saving. The replies do show, as you can see.
And 94%. It honestly sounds crazy, but even a lot of the people being taxed understood that it was necessary for society to continue to exist. And having a strong middle class was a crucial investment into the future of the country. But I don't know, man, I just think it's kind of interesting that during what's referred to as the golden age of capitalism, the government did a bunch of socialism. During the period of time that birthed the idea of the American dream, the government was taxing the absolute shit.
Malfon, do you agree that we should make life less difficult for the poor? Yes. Easy Monday aren't I feel like I'm usually more pro welfare than you. Like
out of the richest Americans and using that money to provide jobs and welfare programs for everybody else. A single income household.
Again, it's like, it's not like we got rid of all these New Deal programs. If you just look at like the percentage social spending, or social spending as a percentage of GDP, it seems like it's gone up. Regardless,
working a regular ass job could afford to start a family.
And then just the total meme, bro. Like just the
for everybody else. A single income household working a regular ass job could afford to start a family, buy a house, send their kids to college, and retire at a reasonable age. No wonder people who grew.
It's like a total meme. It's a total like. It's just not true. If you want to I really like this debate on this.
This is such a.
There's this guy, Substacker dude, America's Undoing. He writes. He's the one coming up with the slop. Okay, he writes a lot of the slop. Every post of his is exactly like this goddamn Drew Gooden video. He had a debate with Noah Smith about this topic, and it was a total, like, Noah Smith totally fucking genocided this dude. Oh my god, it was horrible.
You're like 1.4, 1.5. Right.
Yeah, like
grew up in
the house price to income ratio that has been going up. Now that does obviously benefit the people who own homes. And there's no analysis of the reason behind home prices. Like it's not even you can literally argue that inequality drives increasing home prices. That's not inconceivable, but he doesn't even actually say that. He doesn't even make that connection. Yeah, homes also just used to be way smaller. Like space per person in the US has gone up. The homes in the 1950s were a lot smaller than today. They were also just a lot lower quality. A lot less people had AC. A lot less people had I don't know what percent of people had refrigerators in the 50s. I mean, it was probably, I'm gonna guess it would still be over 50%, but percent of American households with I've become a lot more left-wing over the last couple of weeks after seeing the plight of the homeless face in 1950. Yeah, 80%, yeah. But today it's like 99%. Real ones know, Drew, it's closer to correct than Noah Smith. It's just not true. Drew's still less confused than the average libertarian. Average libertarian? Maybe. Well, the issue is average. Well, average libertarian is also just a fucking slop poster. Like, average libertarian does do the reverse slop of like, oh, we spend all this money on welfare, but the official poverty rate is still 10%. It's like, okay. In terms of applied ethical views he is? Oh, probably.
Gush about capitalism the way they do, because for them, it was great. But at this point, it is disingenuous to use that time period as the example for why capitalism works, because that version of it stopped existing a long time ago. The generation of people who started as beneficiaries of a more equitable...
I feel like Fabian is the average libertarian, at least I don't think so. No, I think the average libertarian is like, it's just some idiot who, I don't want to say idiot, it's just some guy who like watches the fucking Reason TV, okay? Like, I don't actually know the name of the people who host the Reason TV podcast. Like, I think these are the average libertarian people that are like, oh my god, Mondani is so crazy.
They're set to spend 100. I've heard
there's Scott Lilly incomes.
That's pretty much a
$10 is what price.
Like, they watch just slop. They're not doing like praxology. They watch Prax Ben. True. Fabian is fundamentally confused as he is. It's still smarter than the average libertarian.
system changed
Wait, what if Drew's not vegetarian? I take it back. I'm pretty sure Drew is not vegetarian or vegan, so.
the rules once the roles were reversed and they had the power. So what the hell happened? Everything was going great. What changed? Well, there were a lot of things, obviously, but one of the first big dominoes was the US's involvement in the Vietnam War, which was expensive and deadly, but to be fair, also accomplished nothing. And this had long-term ramifications. America had been diverting so much money away from manufacturing and towards defense that it opened the door for other growing industrialized countries to surpass.
I literally, this point, I just don't know how any of this, I don't know where he got this idea from even. I don't know how any of this follows or anything.
Also accomplished nothing. And this had long-term ramifications. America had been diverting so much money.
Debate Prax Ben? Pro, isn't he on tour doing his debate tour with Cam Higbee right now?
To be fair, also accomplished nothing. And this had long-term ramifications. America had been diverting so much money away from manufacturing and towards defense that it opened the door for other growing industrialized countries to surpass them. More and more.
Like, for one, I would imagine the money we spent for the Vietnam War mostly went to manufacturing weapons. I would like, what else are we doing? Maybe it crowded out other manufacturing spending, so like we lost a competitive advantage in manufacturing because we were doing unproductive activities because it was all centrally planned. I don't want to say centrally planned, but contracted government work or whatever.
Products were becoming cheaper to import than they were to produce. This led to factories getting shut down, unemployment starting to creep back up.
And like this, at least unemployment point just like doesn't follow. For one, I think it's not clear to me that trade, especially during this time period, especially the 70s, like was the major driver behind the decline in the manufacturing share of employment or factories closing down. I think obviously automation just had a lot to do with it as well. The fact that also just consumers started, as income increases, a smaller percentage of income is devoted towards manufactured goods, and more of it goes to services. Those are also just big effects. So like total manufacturing output was increasing all the way until 2008, and by value added as a percent of GDP, that's still going up. Like Norwich, you called himself libertarian, are just 70% conservative who like to edgy post. True.
Products were becoming cheaper to import than they were to produce. This led to factories getting shut down, unemployment starting to creep back.
And like obviously there are, even if like let's suppose trade caused these job losses in manufacturing, caused all these factories to close down, which first of all he's talking about the Vietnam War era, which it doesn't
for manufacturing and
like 1964 to 1975. When did unemployment even start?
To import than they were to produce. This led to factories.
I don't think it was until the latter half there in the 1970s.
Getting shut down.
Which obviously there are other, like yeah, like it's pretty flat here. And then increase in 1970, and there's probably, underlying supply shocks and monetary shocks that were more responsible for that than the fucking Vietnam War and trade.
Employment starting to.
And there are other ways in which, trade can increase jobs. Like that production is typically going to be reallocated towards other sectors. Like if it, for example, increased exports, or, if consumers are spending less on imported goods and they can therefore spend more on other domestic goods, like those are going to increase jobs as well. If it leads to more foreign investment in the US, that can increase jobs too. 1 million more unemployed first worlders. Thank you very much, Big Capital. True.
Creep back.
Even if it increased unemployment in the first world, okay, obviously the marginal benefit of someone in the third world getting a job is higher than the marginal benefit of someone in the first world keeping their job. That's why it's so like people who, I don't think this is fully true, but like people who are like the US, we fucking built China, we did free trade with China, and we like built, we're the reason they're so rich. I think China would have been very rich either way, but like also Mao is not fun true, but it's like also at the end of the day, 800 million ish people out of poverty, that's just like a really good thing. Like that's just like fuck it, I'll give up. Like what's the calculation between Taiwan coming back under Chinese control versus 800 million people out of poverty. I don't know. Maybe even that trade-off is worth it, folks. Like,
A recession hits and we're now facing a pivotal fork in the road in the late 70s. Either we could go back to what worked in the past, prioritize the working class, reinvest into our own infrastructure, try to help lift people out of poverty they've fallen into through no fault of their own. Or we say, fuck the government. We don't owe you shit. We're stupid. Isn't that right? I don't even know my own name.
And I don't even... Again, I think social spending overall is continually, like, has been going up still, but, like, by the 70s, like, what New Deal programs or whatever that were like majorly cut that we could have gone back to funding to go back to the way things were before.
No
like,
own.
What are we gonna do? What, more protectionism? Do we need more? Do we need less free trade to bring all the factories back in the 70s even? Like,
or we say, the deal is you pay taxes. The 80s became trickle-down economics. The logic being, oh man, these rich people are really handcuffed. You know, I bet if we lowered the corporate tax rate from 70 all the way to eventually 28%, then companies will use all that extra money to pay their employees more. I mean, if there's one thing we know about rich people is that they're always looking out for the little guy.
Toast comment says he's really well researched. I know. Didn't you send? It's either you or Easy Money who sent that into Discord server. What I saw, it's like kill me.
Now, for some reason, this hasn't worked out yet, but it's only.
It's like. Again, it's crazy that, like, in the beginning of the video, it's like, if you even suggest that we should raise taxes a little bit, like, people call you crazy, and then, like, we just have a total straw man here. Like, no one
will use all that extra money.
Even fucking Reagan himself, okay, was not arguing if we just give corporate tax cuts, there's gonna be some, like, generous fucking gift given to the lower classes. Right? That's not the mechanism people are talking about, right? Like, corporate taxes probably just do reduce investment, which, you know, will have some negative impact on workers' wages. They raise the cost of production. They probably are going to lead to increased prices for consumers too. Like, the mechanism by which corporate tax cuts can be beneficial to the lower class is not just corporations generously giving all their money away to the working class. It's you know, by increasing investment and stuff and growth.
To pay their employees more. I mean, if there's one thing we know about rich people is that they're always looking out for the little guy. Now, for some reason, this hasn't worked out yet, but it's only been 55 years, so the jury's still out. See, I would argue.
And again, it's all slop, it's all vibes. Okay, we couldn't even had the real wage stagnant meme graph. Okay, we got the productivity, one of the productivity pay gap charts earlier, but couldn't even cite that again here.
That part of the reason why companies in the 40s and 50s were so generous with their extra profits was because the tax rate was so high. I mean, think about it. If you're faced with a decision between giving a huge chunk of money to the government or redistributing it back to the employees who helped you earn it in the first place, you would be much more likely to do the latter because it's an investment in your own company. It's a mutually beneficial exchange. Well compensated.
You would imagine, okay, so for one, you would imagine, like, so it is true, it's a mutually beneficial exchange. But also, or it's probably mutually beneficial exchange ex ante, fucking mutually beneficial. Like, you would imagine there's also a better mutually beneficial exchange that they didn't do because tax rates were so high, because maybe they wanted to do an investment that was very risky, and because the corporate tax rate is very high, they didn't feel, you know, the payout would be worth it, so they redistributed some money to the workers or whatever. But, you know, they forewent some better investment opportunity, some better mutually beneficial opportunity in order to, you know, do whatever they do when the corporate tax rate is high. Like you are changing, like when you change their behavior, you're changing it from one presumably mutually beneficial trade to another. You can make an argument from externalities again about income inequality, but, like, I just don't think that the corporate tax rate is even the best way to reduce income inequality. Distortions Pro, everyone should be forced to read Varna's new classical microeconomics. This is true. I almost get teary-eyed when thinking about the New Deal. It's so great that Americans came together to work for the common good. This is true. I hate this guy. I like Drew. Drew's a good, like, he's a funny dude. I'm still gonna watch him. I'm still subscribed. I just don't know why he feels so confident talking about this. Like, it's frustrating. well, there's a few frustrating things. It's frustrating that like this is, first of all, it's frustrating knowing that this is the mind of the median fucking voter. Okay, like this is like close to how my fucking dad and mom speak. It's like when we're talking about a very law as well, welcome Axelot says Junior. Right now we're talking about why I'm frustrated with Drew Good. Okay, like it's frustrating to that. This is how like the median voter thinks, and like I don't know how to change this. I don't know how to change this. We're doomed. Okay, we're either gonna get infinite Trump immigration deportations bullshit, or we're gonna get infinite Bernie Sanders, and it's gonna be rough either way, folks. It's gonna be rough either way. And it's frustrating that like I don't like there's no consequences when you put out a slop video like this, and it's just not well researched. You're not an expert on this topic. It's just all memes and vibes, and just no one cares, and everyone in the comments is super supportive, and it takes twice as long to challenge everything he's saying versus how long it takes him to say it. Like, bro, but like you don't know that cumulative inflation since 1910 is like over 3K%. This is true. We know, and CEO pay has gone up 4,000%. Don't you know?
Compensated workers are proven to be more loyal.
Dollar lost 97% of its value since the Fed was created, guys. Don't we know?
And more productive, and those are two things that you want. Now there were other factors as well.
And like there is such a thing as efficiency wages, and like some firms will pay their workers a lot because it will make them more productive, and it will reduce employee turnover and stuff. And to the extent that it's efficient to pay, if it's efficient to pay efficiency wages, firms will probably do so. Now what's funny is that that much of the case for efficiency wage, like most of the things he said here,
to do the latter, because it's an investment in your own company. It's a mutually beneficial exchange. Well-compensated workers are proven to be more loyal and more productive, and those are two things that you want. Now there were other.
This is also true of CEOs. Like this is probably more true of high-skill CEOs than it is of the median worker, but we just don't apply that same logic there. Like like there's a lot of competition for good CEOs. And part of the reason why they paid so highly is to keep them there, is to keep them loyal and stuff. But we just throw that logic out the window when it comes to CEO pay.
Factors as well, loosening a lot of anti-monopoly regulations, the legalization of stock buybacks. But this dramatically lower tax rate is a big reason why the 80s serves as the dividing.
Oh, we got another meme.
Buybacks, yes. But this dramatically lower tax rate is a big reason why the 80s serves as the.
Like, it's not implausible that whatever loosening monopoly regulations we did might have increased inequality, but maybe they also increase innovation, right? Maybe firms have more capital to innovate, and maybe that's true. I don't know. I haven't seen any super great. I don't know if it's like causal fucking evidence of that. It's great either way. I don't really think so. I'm also not. The stock buybacks are probably not that bad. Okay, they're probably fine. They're probably fine. I don't know how big the effect would be on inequality either way, because I'm not even sure the exact mechanism by which stock buybacks would increase inequality like more than whatever the next best alternative was. Like either way, like whatever money that was used for stock buybacks is probably just going to go to capital holders through some other mechanism. It's just that, for example, stock buybacks can signal that a company is, more confident that their investments will work out and they feel they're undervalued, than just like dividends would. And that's why, by the way, like you see, when companies announce stock buybacks, even if they don't actually follow through with the stock buyback, their stock prices will still rise, because that like it signals to investors that the people of inside knowledge of the company are confident that the company's going to do well.
Dividing line on just about every economic.
And then we have
graphs. A big reason why the 80s serves as the divide.
Do I even need to do the productivity pay thing? I guess I don't think I did it earlier, but It's stupid for one. Like the biggest issue is they're comparing the productivity of all workers to the productivity of to the wages of only a subset of workers. They're comparing it to it doesn't even list here. Well, it says workers in the private sector, but I think they're comparing it to production and non-supervisory employees. And it could be the case, hypothetically, maybe it's the case, guys, that the gap exists because some workers have seen a big increase in productivity and a big increase in wages, and some workers have seen not a big increase in productivity and also not a big increase in wages. And under that scenario, you would expect the gap to be there, but it doesn't actually represent productivity not keeping up with pay. It simply represents the fact that workers have unequal productivities and therefore unequal pay. And there are other, so I don't know what exactly this is using, because it's not really citing, well, it just says source Economic Policy Institute. So depending on the version of the graph, the EPI eventually corrected some of the bigger issues. Initially, it used two different deflators. It used GDP deflator for productivity, and it used CPI for wages, and that overstates the gap a lot. And again, it doesn't include this is just like hourly compensation. I don't think or the original version of this chart used like hourly earnings, which didn't include non-wage benefits. I wonder if Drew would show the graph of a same manufacturing output over the same time period. I wonder if that graph would look like. Well, yeah, I know. No, you won't. Where's the... I'm looking for a specific paper, but I forget which one it was. It's not this one. They all say roughly the same thing, but I think it's this one. Yeah, this one goes through like, oh, it's a good paper. Scott Winship, he's a cool dude. Goes through, starts with the original chart, and I think it's like, oh, let's do. I think this is adjusting for the different deflators. It like starts using the same deflator for both of them. And then this is switching to, I think, a different inflation. I think it's probably switching to PCE, and I think it's using a different measure of pay that includes non-wage benefits. And you don't see the same gap. Can we answer what happened in 1971? The gold standard, Federal Reserve gold standard, evil. I'm very intelligent. Every chart, and this is just a meme, bro. They're all memes. They're all memes. I think Drew is about to show this one too, as well. God, you know, after we left the gold standard, gold prices went up. What? What? Occurrence of peer review in Google Books. Like, bro. That's definitely causal from the gold standard. What's up, the one platinum?
Line on just about every economic graph you could look at. This was
But something clearly happened on one. What do you mean on one? In 1972? Well, we left the gold standard. So obviously some of these things are explained by the fact that we left the gold standard. Like, for example, gold prices are clearly explained by that. Maybe deficit spending too, to some extent, is explained by that. Some of it is going to just be... Like, some of it probably is the fucking neoliberal trigonometric economic stuff that we started doing more of. But most of these are just memes. Like, it's just not good. It's just not, like, good data.
the beginning of a long and continuous transfer of wealth.
Oh, I think there was yeah, there's more meme charts. obviously the percent of people working minimum wage jobs has gotten a lot lower, or working for federal minimum wage has gotten a lot lower. It's like less than 1% today. And if you look at true to Jack Jorko, you know, if you states have increased their minimum wage, and if you look at the effective minimum wage, considering that a lot of the most populous states have increased their minimum wage, that, you know, that has been going upward. So, you know, that's something to consider. And like, if you just look up Fred percent of workers, federal minimum wage. I thought Fred had a series for this. This is paid below prevailing minimum wage. Regardless, it's very low. It says 1.1%. Like, yeah.
On just about every
What's the source of
economic
this?
graph you could look at. This was the
Yes.
beginning of a long and continuous transfer of wealth from the working
Wait, I think I missed one.
lower tax rate is a big reason
meme
why
graph.
the 80s long and continuous dividing line on just about every economic
And we got the EPI again with their CEO worker pay stuff. It's very weird. I don't know why he uses the one that ends in 2013. Again, it makes me think that he probably just Googled like CEO versus worker pay and just went to Google Images and copied an image that fit his preconceived notion that CEO pay is exploded or whatever. For one, this is only looking at the top 350 publicly traded firms. The median CEO only makes $258,000. You know, this is not representative of the median CEO. This is the very top of the top, and it's looking at a fixed number of firms, right? And the number of firms changes over time. So sort of the percentile that you're looking at is inconsistent. It's inconsistent between its years, right? So like you can imagine in 1970, like let's just say we had 1,000 firms. Looking at the top 350 firms would be looking at like the top 3% of firms, right? Looking at that'd be 30%, right? You know, looking at and if in 2014 we had 1 million firms, looking at the top 350 firms would be like that'd be like top 0.01%, right? So that would be. So what's the correct version? I think Sample recreated it on Fred once. I don't know exactly what it is. It's not that high. But also, again, you know, CEOs are valuable people. They do valuable work. They get paid a lot of money for a reason. There might be some individual cases where CEOs are able to have enough control over like the company board and shareholders where they can give themselves exorbitant pay packages. But generally speaking, like if you look at like we can look at what happens when CEOs suddenly die or are hospitalized and see what happens to a company stock price, and we can, you know, evaluate roughly how much the CEO is sort of valued by the market. And it seems like CEOs get paid less of their marginal product, less of the revenue they bring to the company than the typical worker does. The typical worker gets about 85% of their marginal product. A typical CEO gets like 60 to 70% of their marginal revenue product.
economic graph you could look at. This was the beginning of a long and continuous transfer of wealth from the working class to the top 1%. And while it would be very easy to just blame all of this on then President Reagan, that would only be mostly true. Sure, this new approach opened the door for more exploitation and greed, but you still needed a few scumbags willing to go through that door for the evolution to be complete. And nobody sprinted through it faster than one man. The real-life cartoon villain who designed the blueprint that most modern CEOs are still—
This is all, I don't want to say it's all vibes based, but this is also just like almost none of this is actually material to me. He just goes over the story of one like scumbag CEO or whatever. He's like, oh, this dude invented layoffs. And there's no data. It's just a bunch of
still
memes.
following to this day. His name was Jack Welch, and he's often referred to as the man who broke capitalism. During his tenure as CEO of General Electric, he turned the once quintessential American company that reshaped people's lives and supplied hundreds of thousands of high-paying jobs all across the country into a worthless carcass and a joke of a corporation, all while he became one of the richest people on the planet. In the century before Jack Welch took the reins, GE invented things like X-ray machines, jet engines, TVs, radios, and just about any kitchen appliance you can think of. In the 1980s, Jack invented
Jack's a bad name.
laying people off. That was his big idea. What if we just fire a bunch of people? And then we don't have to spend as much money. It seems so simple and obviously very commonplace today, but before Jack, companies were not doing this. It was almost seen as un-American to fire somebody unless you absolutely had to. But Jack didn't think like everybody else. He was a pioneer. He bravely instituted the rank and yank system.
By the way, there's no... I'm sorry, I'm trying to look for the... I could probably recreate it myself, but I know I could... I'm being lazy and just trying to find a link of the Fred series about the CEO. Wait, I think I found it. Yeah, you can see this is the Truk CEO pay versus it only goes back to 2000 versus median worker or whatever. If anything, since 2008, it's falling. And I don't even know, by the way, if this is, I don't know if this is looking at median usual weekly nominal earnings, second quintile, or quartile. Okay, so that is median, okay. Bro, Fred is impossible to navigate. Fred is, well, it's possible to navigate, it's just, I'm lazy. I don't wanna look up all the series myself. Sometimes it's hard to know exactly what the definitions of certain series are.
Where every year the bottom 10% of employees would get laid off. No matter.
There's no again. There's no analysis. There's no data. I don't know if I have evidence on this at hand, but you could definitely imagine why layoffs would increase productivity, both in an individual firm and overall. You can imagine workers being reallocated to productive firms more often if there are layoffs.
Matter what. Not because they all deserve to be fired, but just because they fell on the wrong side of a spreadsheet. What's that?
And also, it's less risky for firms to hire people if it's easier to lay them off too. So you could obviously, you could see how it might have some positive effect on employment, right? It probably reduces, and that same thing is probably going to lead to more business entries, right? Because it's just less risky to start a business when it's easier to lay people off. Now, to be fair, I think this is all vibes based. I don't know if there are substantially different regulations about when you could lay people off in the 70s or whatever, but certainly if you mandate these things, you could expect some negative effect on employment and investment.
You were 3 years away from retirement and now you no longer qualify for pension? Okay. Then die. And to be clear, the layoffs were also not because the company wasn't profitable. It very much was, but it just wasn't profitable enough. See, when you routinely shut down entire facilities, you uproot thousands of lives, you create a toxic and selfish work environment where loyalty is replaced with fear, and if you're a company with the size and influence that GE had at the time, you can almost single-handedly destroy any semblance of a middle class across all of America. But this number gets a little bit bigger. So it's kind of a fair trade. GE was at the forefront of this countrywide philosophical transition from an economy that cared about making things and rewarding the labor it took to do so, to an economy that only cared about shareholder...
We should have Scandinavian flex security thoughts. I guess I don't... What does entail by the term flex security? Is that low barriers to entry, low labor market, low business regulations or whatever, but high welfare state? Is that what you're entailing? Hell yeah, gamer, yearn for the days when you're less frictional unemployment and losing your job meant no healthcare or whatever. Well, true.
Value and would prioritize anything it could to make that number go up. But the thing about the stock market is it's mostly just about perception. As long as something seems to be growing in value, then people will be more likely to invest in it, which will in turn cause it to be more valuable, even if it shouldn't be. A lot of what Jack did during...
There's part of that that's true, which is that company stock value is the net present value of their future cash flow. and like maybe sometimes there isn't perfect information and assets can be inflated or whatever, but like you would expect, and like he gives the example of you know, GE going fucking bankrupt or whatever. Like that's like investors should be aware of exactly what Drew is saying here. Investors should be aware roughly of, you know, the company that they're investing in, you know, whether layoffs are going to be productive or not.
During his time as CEO did not make the company better, but it did make it bigger. And in the eyes of Wall Street, that was all that mattered. I mean, come on, a business that relies on something boring like selling products can only grow so much. But a company that's constantly acquiring other companies simply has no ceiling. I mean, they could be worth infinity dollars when you think about it. So that's what they did. Over the next few decades, GE bought and sold hundreds of companies, and Jack was lauded for his brilliance because from the outside, everything seemed to be working. I mean, sure, they were becoming a bloated, nonsensical hodgepodge of unrelated businesses, eroding the company's infrastructure and prioritizing constant quarterly gains over any long-term sustainability.
And like they were punished for it by the market. Clearly, eventually, investors got on and they were punished for it. And GE, I think he said, was split up into 3 different companies or whatever. And the good ideas, other firms imitated. You know, if the layoffs themselves weren't the problem, but the, you know, there are issues with whatever, you know, acquiring all those companies or whatever, well, you know, firms have some incentive to emulate the layoffs, but also to not emulate the things that went poorly for GE.
But no one gives a shit because the stock price has never been higher. They've stumbled upon an infinite money glitch. They're just alchemizing value out of thin air. It gets to a point where the company founded by Thomas Edison doesn't even make their own light bulbs anymore. It's cheaper to get them somewhere else. Okay. All they care about now is their ballooning financial division. They're issuing high interest loans. They become a massive holder of subprime mortgages, a famously good investment to make in the early 2000s. Literally whatever it took to juice the numbers, that's what they would do. After about 30 years of short-term decisions that received instant gratification from shareholders but were gradually making things worse for the company and its dwindling numbers.
Look again. Net present value, future cash flows. If some decision is going to only increase cash flows in the short term but decrease them in the long term, if investors can foresee that, they would the value of the stock would fall.
Number of employees. GE had become severely overvalued. And it wasn't until right after Jack retired with his $400 million severance package where his successors stepped in and were like,
this doesn't wasn't it a famously bad investment in late 2008? Oh, in late 2000s? Oh, that's what he's saying it sarcastically, right? Like,
the time bomb Jack planted explodes in their faces, and GE spends the next 20 years slowly bleeding out. And at this point, they couldn't fall back on just like selling microwaves because they'd been cutting corners on production so long that nobody wanted to buy any of their shitty garbage anymore. And of course, they had fallen way too far behind on innovation because they spent all their money on acquisitions instead of research.
Like, Alice, it's not literally GE being punished for behaving poorly.
2021,
like, the company you want out of the market
that helped bring electricity to America was mercifully laid to rest, split into 3 separate institutions, none of which have come close to the dominance or influence that GE once had over the American economy. But here's the thing. You know who isn't affected at all by the cataclysmic downfall of General Electric? Jack Welch. Because he's dead now. He already got to live his entire life of luxury and adoration.
There's, I don't know. I would have to, he has sources for the Jack Welch stuff down here, but like it just seems like way too much research to do for one person. I just care more about the fucking actual economic stuff. But it could be true. This guy was a shitty dude and he ruined a company and investors couldn't foresee it until like after he died and lived a good life. Now I will say, you know, part of the reason CEOs can get golden parachutes or whatever and get like generative retirement benefits is because firms might want to encourage CEOs to take risk, and they feel like CEOs won't take you know, if a CEO lost literally everything when the company went under or whatever, a CEO might be very reluctant to change business strategies or something. So there might be like some legitimate market justification for giving CEOs like generous benefits when you know, in the case that they leave or retire or whatever. There can be legitimate reasons to do that, but I don't like. Can we just look at? Can we look at data? Can we just look at it? Like you can literally It's not even impossible to make the case that, you know, markups have risen because, you know, the markets are just generally less competitive nowadays. Like there is research you can find to that effect. Like I haven't done a ton of reading on it, but like I know Brian Albright, that the price theory Substack guy, like he has a whole paper where he tries to defend the opposite thesis of that, and I think he goes over the evidence in support of it though. Like I wouldn't be that mad if we just cited If we just like cited a paper. It's just a Twitter thread that goes over his paper. Economic logic makes sense. Higher markups leads to firms have more market power. It leads to the arrow. I don't think it makes sense here, but bears keep out competitors, which leads to less entry/dynamicism. The story is so widely accepted as in the background of all antitrust discourse, but what happens when we test it at the industry level? Plot twist, no relationship. If anything, firms with bigger markups increases had smaller, dynamicism declines. That's the opposite of what the market power story predicts. We check this relationship every way imaginable. Like I think in this paper, he goes over some of the other version or other papers that don't find the same results, but they're not at the industry level. We ran hundreds of specifications, different market measures, different dynamicism metrics, different weightings. T-stats cluster around 0, slightly positive. The median effect, positive. Maybe it's about timing. We use local projections to trace out dynamic effects. A markup increase today should reduce entry/dynamicism in future years if market power is the mechanism. Nope, nothing. One market measure does correlate labor share. When labor share rises, dynamicism drops. This is why unions are bad. But this might reflect automation or changing production technology, not market power. Pure market power should show up in all markup measures. What results suggest rising markups and declining dynamicism are parallel trends, not cause and effect. They're occurring in different industries at different times, and any aggregate correlation seems spurious. Two independent phenomena happen to coincide temporally.
Without ever having to deal with the fallout caused by his actions. He took control of a building with a rock-solid foundation and just kept scrapping it for parts until the only thing left for it to do was collapse under its own weight. But by that point, he was long gone. I believe that this is the goal of those who now follow in his footsteps. They don't need to care about whether or not what they're doing is harmful or unsustainable. As long as the facade can be maintained long enough for them to reap the rewards, it doesn't matter that the ship is sinking behind them because they have a lifeboat. It doesn't matter that America spent the past 60 years exporting all its jobs and decimating the economies of small towns all across the country because a few hundred people responsible for those things already got to live long.
I tweeted this clip too, but like
long, happy
millions of Americans benefited from globalization, both consumers who were able to buy cheaper products, and that just like mechanistically increases real wages, right? That's every American consumer now who can buy, whose money now goes further. And by the way, when they spend less on, goods that they now import, they spend more on other domestic goods, which increases jobs in other sectors, probably also increases jobs in the export industry. And if it leads to investment, you like billionaires? I mean, I don't, I want to say I like billionaires. I would say I don't think the mechanisms by which most people want to get rid of billionaires would be a net positive. But I think, I talked about this earlier, I think most billionaires are like not good people. I wish they would donate their money to effective charities, but regardless, there's no good evidence trade decreased net jobs. It doesn't even seem necessarily to be the case that like it hurts small communities that badly. Thanks for the follow as a bot, but regardless, I mean, obviously the best paper you can find on it or whatever is the Arthur Dornan Hansen paper, David Arthur. Where is it? And that has a number of thumbs up, true issues with it. And if you, is it this I'm looking for? I love Drew Gooden. Drew Gooden's I've said it before in history, but I like him, and I watch all of his content. I've been watching for a while. It's just that this video is just it's just slop. It's all vibes. It's all slop. Okay. I think this is just a paper talking about the issues with the econometrics in the Arthur Dornan Hansen paper, and I think it actually finds that using their data, it actually hurt bigger regions more than smaller regions. God damn it, where is it? I don't know if I'm gonna be able to find it. Regardless, even they don't say it was a like net loss and that we should try to do anything to reverse it.
lives. They don't give a shit.
This cutthroat corporate culture that Jack pioneered is still seen all around us today, and through the magic of time, it's only getting worse. CEOs make $1,000 every second, while their employees have to piss in water bottles so they don't fall behind. Routine layoffs, regardless of if a company is even struggling, are so normalized that it's just something we've come to expect. The stock market rules the world. Every major decision is dictated by this inherently volatile and short-sighted metric, and look at where that's gotten us. Millions without jobs.
I don't know if it's inherently short term. I like inherently volatile might be fair, but again, it's not the case that it you know necessarily incentivizes any type of like short term decision making, because you know it's the net present value of future cash flows that matters for a company's stock price. So if you do some action that is going to decrease your company's future cash flows, even if in the short run it might increase it, if investors foresee that, the stock price would still fall.
And in shitification.
Do you believe Scandinavia is better than America for who? For the bottom for the bottom 50% of people? Most definitely. Now, I think if America were like Scandinavia, like I think Scandinavia is able to some extent free ride off of innovation that comes out of the U.S., for example. Like, you know, I think Spotify is it from Finland or Sweden or whatever? But there aren't many big tech companies coming out of Scandinavia. I don't know how much medical innovation comes out of Scandinavia. So, but certainly for the bottom 50% at least, it's like it provides a better quality of life. But you know.
Epidemic and a concentration of wealth that should be seen as a threat to humanity. Even while owning everything, billionaires live in fear of losing it, so they weasel their way into power.
No billionaires is good, actually. I mean, I prefer if there were no billionaires if they, again, donated all their money to effective charities. I just think that, you know, sort of the mechanism, like, you know, wealth taxes would be inefficient. It would just reduce investment and probably not even raise enough revenue to have any substantial effect on the U.S.'s budget. You know, I think any type of sort of pre-distribution, you know, way to get rid of a lot of billionaires, for example, like any type of CEO pay cap or something, would also produce probably have negative effects on investment and growth, both, you know, overall and within firms. That it would just not be a net benefit.
Politics, they influence elections, they buy policy changes.
This is like, I'm going to disagree with which we're on the scale of this, but I do think this is the biggest concern you should have with wealth inequality, in my opinion. But it's not clear to me that the effect is usually that big. I think under Trump, it's getting worse. But, you know, like if you look at like actual causal evidence, like there's a meta-analysis, it finds, I think they, oh shit, I don't know, I meant to click on that. I meant to, why is Sci-Hub doing this to me? Look at just the effect of corporate lobbying, and it finds, you know, it doesn't actually tend to have that big of an effect. I think there's evidence from the repeal of Citizens United that found it actually had like some positive effect on growth. We emphasize Citizens United had an important state level electoral consequences. Our electoral and economic findings are unlikely to be driven by a Republican wave effect. Well, some research finds that Republican election rates were higher in state houses affected by Citizens United. We find that there is increased political turnover when turnover is defined more broadly. Indeed, we find that political activity across both liberal and conservative groups broadly increase, and that governorships are more likely to turn over from both Democrat to Republican and vice versa. It's not necessarily benefiting one party over the other. And I thought it's also found, we find evidence consistent with increased political spending, spurring political competition, and the adoption of pro-growth policies. These policies benefit a broader set of constituents, as we find a broad-based increase in labor income. It's not even the case that to the extent it does affect policy, it's always bad. Which is more important, Shrimp Welfare Fund or UNICEF charity to starving kids in Africa? I mean, there's going to be like a margin to things, but I would say on the margin, typically the Shrimp Welfare Project is at the current margin going to be more effective.
They use their wealth to reshape the world to benefit them.
But like it wouldn't actually take that much money for the Shrimp Welfare Project to like probably hit like diminishing economies of scale. And are you serious? I mean, I think the Shrimp Welfare Project is what he's saying more important. I don't know what you, I don't like if the question is, would I rather like end all starving children or like end all shrimp suffering? I think it's probably the case that starving children on net suffer more than the shrimp or whatever. If the question is which charity is more effective, I think probably the Shrimp Welfare Project.
Them even further. They
Most effective at the current margins.
try to control narratives.
I also think you should. We're never going to do this video. I also think you should probably diversify what charities you give to, because of the sort of moral risk or whatever. Like maybe I'm wrong about animal suffering mattering at all. Okay, and it would be way better to just give money to human charities. My back hurts. But I'm pretty confident that I'm not right on that. So
by buying up news outlets, they can dictate what's on our social media
stream,
feeds. They spend an enormous amount of resources on pitting us all against each other, so we're too distracted to see that the real problem is them.
Should the human race survive?
Everything kind of sucks right now, and as a result, most people are justifiably pretty angry. But for media outlets and politicians,
I don't think I care to watch this part just because love you, dorks.
is that anger?
He just rants about Snap being cut, and
lost access.
Most of it is true, and I agree with it.
Population to be unable to. I'm busting my ass over here to barely make.
He doesn't cite particularly good evidence for some of the things he says, but whatever.
Ultimately does. The majority of SNAP recipients will take the same
part was stupid though.
amount, but instead of reinvesting it into the economy, which is what SNAP ultimately does, they would just buy some more missiles or send a pile of cash to Argentina. Second of all,
like missiles are also reinvesting into the economy insofar as it's just the government spending money to buy or to contract, private companies to do things, just like Snap is. The government just giving some type of in-kind benefit that eventually reinvests in the economy in a sense that it is spent at grocery stores. Are you doing some serious econ stuff here? It's not super serious. We're doing a little econ stuff here. Now, it probably, like, if you want to say the people who you give Snap to probably have a higher marginal propensity to consume, and therefore the multiplier is higher, well, that's probably true, but you're also, via taxation, taking away money from other parts of the economy. And now I think that trade-off is usually is worth it right now. And I think there'd be ways to tax more efficiently and give welfare more efficiently that would make that trade-off even more worth it. And we could probably spend even more on some type of food benefit, some type of cash transfer, or more efficient in-kind benefit if we really have to do in-kind benefit to people. I like trickle up as my whole life I got ripped off. Oh no.
By definition, the majority of SNAP recipients fall under the umbrella of elderly, disabled, veterans, full-time
trickle even means
caretakers, or just temporarily unemployed. Remember, not everybody who isn't working does so because they don't want to. It is very hard to find and keep a job right now. The fact that SNAP spending ebbs and flows so closely with the...
But yeah, most of this is true. I don't disagree with it, but I think you could probably...
What's the argument? For 1 second to figure in here.
Well, it doesn't matter what
time to expect you
for some stuff.
Capitalism, they will still go to war for it, even if it's not working.
But yeah, this shit is so frustrating. Especially, again, at the beginning of the video, he was like, is AI going to be good? No, it is trash. I'm not convinced it will holistically be trash. I'm pretty, like, there are a lot of AI tools that I currently benefit from, and seemingly they're getting better over time. So I don't know if it's going to be, I'll say, like, I don't think it's going to be as valuable as a lot of AI companies seem to think it will be. Explain, for example, with regards to video editing, AI, like Adobe has their AI stuff, which is pretty good at editing audio and enhancing audio. I use AI for the captions in my in my intros, and that's something that is very. I used to before AI tools were like big for that. I used to manually edit captions. Manually editing captions is like super fucking annoying. Like, if you go to my oldest video, not live, if you go to, like, my oldest videos, like, you can see.
I see it, Jerry.
What are you doing?
Like, I was manually editing these captions, and, like, A, they're not as good, and B, they're annoying as fuck.
It's so dumb.
I probably was not doing them in the most efficient way, to be fair.
To make
But
him yellow.
I think that's the closest thing to skin color.
Okay, and the story.
So yeah, eventually AI can make shorts right now, but in my experience, it's not great, but it's okay. It's like not horrible. If you go to my shorts, a lot of them are AI because I paid for a subscription once. Is this when you were a socialist? I don't know. I don't know if I was a socialist back then. I don't remember exactly when that video was filmed because I re-uploaded it because it used to be on a channel that got terminated. Like I think is this AI?
How?
I'd be governor, by the way.
I know. Yes, like
Anal representation in
Anal.
the office.
like I don't know. It's not horrible, but it doesn't not really work as well as I would like it, obviously.
It doesn't matter what
You are doing a PhD? No. Well, not yet at least. Yeah, maybe, you know, 10 years from now.
you say about capitalism, they will still go to war for it, even if it's not working for them.
Like, bro, you can't open the video and say, oh my, you're treated as crazy whenever you want to tax, say you want to tax the rich more, and then say something like, I like your ChatGPT video descriptions. I use either ChatGPT or vidIQ for that. But yeah, ChatGPT also does the chapters for me in my videos a lot. Or Gemini does. Gemini, I feel like, usually does better. But yeah, that's also, chapters are annoying to do as well. And it's cool that you can have AI do that. Eventually, AI thumbnail generation will get better. Right now, AI thumbnails are as... but eventually that'll be, you know, good too. Yeah, like, what is Gemini? Why do you say it's better? Google Gemini, the Google thing, because it typically is more accurate and typically it's less boo billionaire apologist boo. True. Typically it's less less issues with the length of the transcript. ChatGPT sometimes will freak the fuck out when a transcript is like more than an hour long and just stop doing chapters after that, or it'll just hallucinate chapters. And a lot of times ChatGPT will I can tell sometimes ChatGPT just starts hallucinating when it will just make chapters at round numbers instead of like actual relevant points in the video. Gemini seems to not do it as much. But let's again. Okay, can I finish my sentence without without having to reply to chat? Do you have a person you look up to? That's very vague. I don't know. Said like a few times in his video, like, oh, like I'm, like people think you're crazy when all you want to do is return to the fucking tax system we used to have or whatever. You want to tone it down a little bit and say these people just get a little bit less money. 34 votes in your poll. Well, there's a clickbait title and thumbnail, so. But like now we're saying, and people do this a lot. It's like, oh, if you support, like, it's crazy. You defending capitalism when it doesn't even work for you. It's like, bro makes $30,000 a year and is defending billionaires. In the old days, you would have a person to look up to. My mom. I don't know. What do you want me to say, bro? I don't know.
Statistically speaking,
and again, it's the total straw man of trickle down economics, which is not. No one ever defined themselves as a trickle down economics person or whatever. Reagan was. I don't think Reagan ever used the term trickle down. I'm pretty sure he didn't. He maybe did in some speeches. Then like no one is arguing that if you cut corporate taxes, corporations are just going to generously give all the money away to workers. It's not the mechanism people are talking about. There are very good reasons to believe, based on industry level data and firm level studies and stuff, and spatial studies, that corporate taxes, especially when capital is mobile, reduces wages. It raises prices for consumers. It reduces investment. Those are things that are also bad for the working class. No one is arguing that it's just like some magnanimous, generous giveaway that corporations are going to do.
Probably not. You'll try to criticize a multi-billionaire who's not paying enough taxes, and people will defend them like, hey, it's not their fault. They're just taking advantage of loopholes like any smart business person would. And you're like, okay, so then we agree there's a problem with the rules, right? If they're just exploiting the system, then maybe the system shouldn't be so easy to exploit. We've reached a point where a lot of the core principles of a free market no longer apply. Like the idea that you can vote with your dollar. I get to pick which businesses I support, therefore the best ones will succeed and the worst ones will fail. Yeah, except when one company is allowed to corner the market and price out all their competition, suddenly there isn't any.
And we would have small.
Get ready, folks. Get ready, folks. Is this guy a nerd? Yeah.
One company is allowed to corner the market and price out all their competition, suddenly there isn't any.
And we would have small businesses tell us if they walked into a Walmart or a Costco, the retail price at those stores, the price on the shelves at those stores is lower than the wholesale price a small business is getting. And so there are huge disparities here.
And that's now feeding into itself, right? The more dire the economy is for everyone, the less freedom they
Like we're complaining about cheaper prices for consumers. First of all, that's obviously a direct benefit to consumer. Like insofar as big businesses are able to provide lower prices to consumers, that's a good thing. That's a good thing if you want that. B, the reason that they have lower prices is because they're more efficient. The thing that you want from the market, okay, probably the sort of better measure of competition, I would say, than just like the concentration of firms is whether or not, you know, resources are being shifted to the most productive firm. You want in a market system for the most productive firm to be the one where consumers shop at. The reason Walmart, a lot of the big retailers get lower prices is because they have economies of scale. They are more efficient, and it's a good thing that resources are allocated to them insofar as they are more efficient. Now, barriers to entry also matter, but a lot of barriers to entry are created by the government itself rather than by firms with rather than by individual firms. If you can enact one policy that would collapse prices in all sectors, what would it be? Well, I mean, just like the opposite, the inverse K% rule. Just decrease the money supply by 5% a year until they're fully captured the entire supply chain, undercutting all competition, and then they will scalp you at will, perhaps in ways that don't present at the ticket. Well, that's why, and I think you might be able to make some argument for that based on the fact that it seems like maybe Amazon's stock price, Walmart stock price is not justified unless in the future they do have some price setting. People foresee that they do have price setting power, but that's why you need to lower barriers to entry. And now, again, there can be barriers to entry created by firms, and obviously economies of scale itself is somewhat of a barrier to entry. But I guess the evidence I've seen does not suggest that the barriers to entry created by firms is a very big deal, or that has led to substantially larger markups for products, or substantially less innovation, or substantially more market power. I want you to do the best and worst AI for 10 years. Is that doable? Do you mean what the best and worst case scenarios are? Obviously, the best case scenario for AI in 10 years is, simply that it continues getting exponentially better to the point where it, it's able to massively increase productivity and automate a lot of things, and we reach. In 10 years, you're not gonna, reach some fucking space communism, post-labor scarcity world or whatever. But you would imagine, ideally, leisure time would increase. Wages for the people still working would probably increase. The amount of just new inventions would increase drastically. The amount of medical technology would increase a lot. If we had AI that was able to do a lot of there's some I forget what I watched about it once. In theory, medical innovation could increase a lot, and like we could make a lot of new drugs if AI was able to do whatever not theory bullshit or whatever if it's able to compute like a bunch of different like formulations, not just formulations, but like actual physical structures of or different like shapes chemicals can take, and what their effects would be. So, do you think people can get jobs, or does UBI well, I'd prefer like UBI obviously. Just do good and support maximizing total utility. I'm unsure. I bet he has some egalitarian twist to him. I bet he is some egalitarian twist. I mean, worst case scenario is just I guess layoffs without any of the without any of the sort of benefits from the population like working less.
They have when they're deciding,
and no substantial like actual innovation, but it simply just automates existing jobs, and we don't actually get much innovation out of it. Simply less jobs.
What to pay for. Amazon is certainly not the only place to buy things, but historically speaking, it's almost always the cheapest and most convenient. So how do you convince somebody who's also been forced to pinch pennies due to their own circumstances that they need to spend more time and money buying that same thing from a local mom and pop shop when they could just click 3 buttons and have it magically appear at their door in 3 hours? It's not even really fair to impose that because that person is also struggling, but then the cycle continues. The small business closes, Amazon and Walmart extend their reach even further, and once all
what you want. You want resources to be shifted to the most productive firm. You want resources going as far as possible. If Amazon can, make more fucking shit with the same amount of resources as a smaller firm and gives consumers lower prices, Amazon should have more market share. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's what you want. That's good. That's good. That's good.
Competition is defeated, then they can just raise the prices to be whatever they want. They can train an algorithm to...
It doesn't seem like that's happening that much.
Charge you the maximum price they think you'll pay at any given moment. Now, one of the most common counter...
It's like... I don't know, there's probably a point at which dynamic pricing is not... it's like not a net benefit. If nothing else, literally just for like the perception of it not being fair. That probably like causes enough harm in people that it might conceivably could outweigh the benefits of like, more producer surplus. But, I don't have strong opinions on that as of now. So, in theory... it could be really good for poor people though. You could have a situation where, we do fucking progressive price discrimination for a lot of things, and the evil rich can subsidize the poor. How much unemployment would you take in order to decrease prices? I don't care about decrease. I care about real prices, easy money. So I don't want nominal deflation. I just don't care.
Arguments you'll hear if you bring up the idea of raising taxes on the ultra wealthy is that, well, if you do that, they're just gonna leave. First of all, no, they're not. That's a bluff they've been using for years, perpetuated by media networks owned by, you guessed it, rich people who don't want their taxes to go up. Sure, a few of them might leave.
I don't have a ton of evidence on capital flight. I don't know how serious a concern it is. I mean, I'm sure there's some margin at which it would matter, but I'm agnostic as to if that's really a big concern for most places.
But the kinds of people who are willing to go to the trouble of moving their entire business from New York City to Kissimmee, Florida, are probably already doing everything they can to avoid paying any taxes at all. It doesn't seem like a very productive mindset to cater to this parasitic minority at the expense of everybody else. Second of all, oh my God.
Bro, that's me for real.
Can we grow some fucking balls here?
You don't understand. They're not gonna like it if we raise their taxes.
Do you hear yourself? Do you hear how pathetic you sound? Okay, so what, we can't do anything then? That's it? It's over, they won? Your plan is...
I hate the framing sucks again. It's so frustrating. Again, outside of this video where he's like, oh my God, I can't believe the people... Or I say, we should raise taxes, and people think you're crazy or whatever. But then it's like... but then our analysis for the arguments against wealth taxes or something is like, what... You say they're gonna leave, but can we grow some fucking balls? No, please, brother. I just care about whether things are net benefit or not. Okay, and you should weigh the evidence for these things. Okay, if it is just factually the case that the rich will leave, and taxing the wealthy won't lead to some huge revenue increase or won't lead to substantially more. Well, I guess if all the rich people left, probably would lead to more equality, but it would decrease innovation, decrease investment to such an extent that it would not be worth it, then you shouldn't do it. That's a calculus you should make. Okay, that's a calculus that matters. Revenue is not relevant. Well, To Drew, at least it is. But I mean, I think revenue is relevant too. But. The electorate is really hungry for deflation. They're going to vote for the person that gives it. I'm not. Easy money. I'm not. You're like, Drew, okay. I don't care. That's not the calculus I'm making. I just want to do what's a net benefit. I don't think deflation on the whole would be a net benefit. I don't really care if deflation, well, there might be a margin where it's bad. I don't really care that much if deflation comes from like supply side things.
Is that we should just give up and let the billionaires have whatever they want. Buddy, we've already tried that, and that's not working either. Third of all, this criticism is predicated on an idea that taxation essentially has a bell curve to it, where after a certain rate, your overall revenue actually decreases because people will lose the incentive to work as hard or, like you're saying, move away. With this in mind, there have been studies done by economists who believe that every country has its own ideal rate for maximum efficiency. However, the implication that raising taxes would cause the overall revenue to go down would only be true if we were on the tail end of this bell curve, and we are nowhere close to that. So
obviously, number one, the revenue maximizing rate is not necessarily the like actual efficient rate insofar as, you know, like maybe maximizing revenue, like you could raise taxes and maximize revenue, but it would hurt long run growth in such a way where the extra revenue is not actually worth it. But there are other, like, obviously those, like, most of these are not taking into account the externalities that rich people probably have. They might have some negative externalities via income inequality and wealth inequality, obviously, but they probably also have some amount of positive externalities insofar as they have any positive effect on innovation or growth, or our CEO is running firms really effectively that employ a lot of people. Nicholas Decker has this oh god, he wants to maximize total revenue. Horrible and evil. He has this post on it. He goes through like some of the evidence. Like I think he cites the like I think Piketty Saez and this dude are literally just looking at the top revenue maximizing rate. I actually don't know what paper Drew is citing here.
if your main concern is to maximize total revenue, it's pretty clear which direction we should be moving. Otherwise, the very metric your point is referencing contradicts the argument you're trying to make. Now, even having said all of that, I'm not going to sit here and act like just raising taxes is an immediate fix to all of our problems, because we'd still have to rely on elected officials to actually use that money in a sensible way. I'd be happy to contribute more if I knew it was going to better healthcare or nicer parks or public transportation, but if my money's just going to be used to blow up a hospital on the other side of the world, then yeah, maybe I'd rather just give it to a food bank. I don't know all the answers, because at the end of the day,
not giving it to the Shrimp Welfare Project. Horrible.
No matter how hard I try to expand my legacy beyond it, I'm still just the road work ahead guy. But I do know that this amount of wealth inequality that's showing
Also, meme thing. I'm pretty sure this is Sayed Zuckman. I'm almost certain. It's not including Social Security.
There's a chart I saw recently that I can't get out of my head. A Harvard business professor and economist asked more than 5,000 Americans.
They don't even have the...
All know that
source. Incredible. Okay, incredible. Okay, 404 not found. Okay, I don't even know what they're citing. I don't even know what they're citing. Congressional Budget Office. That's after-tax income, but they're looking at the share of wealth. Productivity pay. Pay's not found. Cool. Darren, feels so good to be a revenue truther. Nobody can ever use. I don't want my tax money to bomb kids with me. Let's go. Okay. This is the... Oh my god. Bro. All these links are dead. Kill me.
No signs of slowing down anytime soon is not sustainable. Turns out that actually every single thing in the world becoming a for-profit commodity, from housing to healthcare, is just a way to...
I don't even like... Housing and healthcare have both historically been for-profit commodities. I don't like... I know the UK only got the NHS in the 19... was it in the... It was after World War II, right? It might have been before World War II, but it was when was NHS founded? Yeah, it was after World War II. Like, when was first national healthcare policy launched? Like, I don't really know. Germany, 1883. Google AI is telling me, like, historically it's been more for profit than not for profit. And even, you know, Germany today, you know, has universal healthcare, but it's like it's not even a single payer model. Germany doesn't have single payer, right? Germany has like some managed competition model. Yeah, universal multi-payer healthcare. Well, when did this guy become a far left communist? Dude, yeah, you were not quite at the end of the video yet. The end of the video, like last minute, literally sounds like a fucking Assange stream.
Enrich a few people at the cost of many. And I have to wonder if we've finally reached a point now where the greed has gone too far, that it's now so impossible to ignore that no amount of gaslighting about how the economy is good actually will convince people who are dying because they can't afford to go to the doctor that this is just how life should be. History shows that unfortunately sometimes things have to get worse before they can get better. And if this is what it takes for a return to class solidarity, then I guess at least we're closer to that than we've been in a long time. We just need to put down our phones, set aside our differences for a little bit, and unite on this one issue. They want us divided because they're afraid of how strong we would be if we stood together. Do not fall for it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go argue on Reddit about how Ghost of Yote is woke because they didn't make the main character hot enough for me. Thank you for watching.
Bro, like, we're literally doing class consciousness memes now, bro. How did we get here? How did we get here? Total slop. Total memes. Like I said, I like Drew Gooden. Also, Britannica Great Depression. Let's go. Incredible source. Productivity pay gap. The gap. By the way, notice... Oh, they don't even... I thought they had the graph in here. But, the EPI doesn't even claim anymore that this like pay isn't or the EPI will state this graph is mostly due to inequality in compensation between workers. My source is EPI and an encyclopedia. Yeah, it's all slop. It's all slop. I just don't understand. I just don't understand the confidence, like the confidence and the how do I say it? The rudeness, the whatever the general, I don't know a general word for, you know, straw manning, I guess, you know, say, oh, trickle-down economics is all about corporations magnanimously giving away money when you cut corporate tax rates, not bothering to understand the mechanisms by which a lot of these taxes can hurt growth or whatever, or, you know, saying, you know, people are defending capitalism when it isn't even working for them. All this stuff about the people are telling you the economy is doing really good just because the stocks are growing up when everyone's starving. It's crazy to me. I don't get it. I don't get it. Obviously, he did a deep dive in economics for that video. Obviously. Just like Johnny Harris did, okay? He was knee deep in the data, bro. Anyways. Why the hell do our defense contractors need subsidies? What do you mean by subsidies? My understanding is we don't give them a lot of direct subsidies, but we do probably overpay for stuff. We want them to like stay in business because they're the like Lockheed Martin is the fucking only, they're the only company that has the technology to do to make the fucking jets and stuff we need. So Israel's MOU, for example, MOU. Non-binding 10 mil. Oh, this is not a defense contractor. What? This is just us giving money to Israel. What? This isn't a subsidy. This is, my understanding is we just allot Israel like a $3.8 billion budget or whatever to buy military equipment, but that's just like, that's not a subsidy. That's just contracting. It's a subsidy for our contractors. How is that a subsidy? We just, so when I think of subsidy, I think of like you are, you know, giving some company, so some people or whoever, like either like a lump sum payment to like keep them afloat, like you're bailing them out, or you're doing like a per unit, like every unit of this you produce, like will, you know, give you like a dollar on top or whatever, or maybe like some type of it's not exactly a subsidy, but some type of like price floor where like the government will ensure we give Israel money to buy a but that's just so we give Israel money that they then use to contract. If you want to say we're subsidizing Israel, that's, I guess you could say that, but we're like, Israel's just contracting out the work, right? Like it's not like Lockheed Martin is engaging in activity that they would be doing otherwise, and we're just giving them money on top of that. It's Israel will pay Lockheed Martin for providing a service or providing a jet. Like I don't really consider that a subsidy. Otherwise, subsidizing defense contracts by contracting them for defense. You can't make this shit. Like, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a subsidy to me. I think it's, you can say we're subsidizing Israel. But we're also like strictly strategic interests or whatever. Probably like we get military intelligence and stuff from Israel, and they, you know, fucking bomb Iran for us. I don't know if it's worth $3.8 billion a year. And I like when considering any moral cost, right? I think it becomes clear that it's probably not at this point, at least. But it's not like we get literally zero benefit. It's simply from a evil U.S. imperialism perspective, there's probably some benefit there. Anyway, okay, I'm watching this stupid veganism thing because I haven't watched it yet, and then I'm going to bed.
Is Cole Haynes the president of Allied Students for Animal Protection? Cole will be arguing that we have a moral obligation to be vegan because animals are morally significant and killing them for food is wrong. Stephen will be challenging this conclusion. Cole, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Aiden. Thank you to Yale Effective Altruism for putting this on. And thank you to Destiny. As someone who's not a formal debater myself, I really appreciate your ability to just come here on the spot, come up with this on the fly, as it were. So, in 2020, over the course of a few months, pork...
Can you turn up the speed a little bit? It's on 1.5. I can...
Producers in Iowa Falls packed over 1 million pigs into barns. They then shut off the ventilation and pumped in 150-degree steam. Video shows pigs screaming, collapsing and writhing in pain for nearly 3 hours.
What would your relations with Israel be if you were president? I don't know. I don't know, bro. I don't know what I could even... exactly what I could do.
Before the barn finally fell silent. Shortly after, a new batch of pigs were loaded in. This event was, by all plausible accounts, a Holocaust. And yet few people know what happened, let alone that this kind of thing happens constantly.
Doesn't it go to like 8x? I think it does on... Well, you can do 4. I think on mobile I can do more.
80 billion land animals a year, that's 200 million every day, are raised on factory farms in some of the worst conditions imaginable. These facts make eating animal products, in my view, one of the worst things a person will do in their lives. My argument is very simple. First, I claim that it is deeply wrong to cause enormous amounts of pain, suffering, and death, even to animals, for comparatively trivial benefit. This is a modest claim. It doesn't require controversial views about animal rights or how much moral status animals have. It supports some of our most basic intuitions. For instance, most of us would agree that it would be seriously wrong to light a cat on fire for the sake
How do you have YouTube Premium? I pay $15 a month for YouTube Premium.
of hearing its screams. My second claim is that in ordinary circumstances, when we buy or consume animal products, we cause massive amounts of suffering for trivial benefits. Consider some of the facts about factory farming as of 2025. Nearly all breeding pigs live in crates so small that they can't turn around. Piglets are castrated and mutilated without anesthetic. Many pigs arrive at slaughter with pneumonia. Transport alone kills hundreds of thousands. For broiler chickens, they're bred to grow so fast that most spend their lives in pain or are unable to walk. About 500,000 birds per year are boiled alive due to improper stunning methods in scalding tanks.
Too much, man. YouTube Premium is definitely worth it for me.
Hens live in cages smaller than a sheet of paper. Male chicks, about 7 billion a year, are killed on their first day of life because they're deemed unfit for the egg-laying hen industry. For years, scientific consensus has held that non-human animals experience pain and pleasure much like we do. As the 2012 Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness states, the weight of evidence indicates that humans are not unique in possessing the neurological substrates that generate consciousness. What makes torture morally bad is the intrinsic character of the experience, the way it feels from the inside, not the species or intelligence of the victim. A typical meat eater causes animals to spend about 132,000 extra days, that's roughly 364 years, on factory farms. Causing 364 years of torture is presumptively wrong. So the question is
now, how can we steal? YouTube Premium does add the skip ahead. I think that's still premium exclusive. I believe that's premium exclusive. The skip ahead button, which will skip sponsorships for you.
Do we have a sufficiently good reason for doing this? For most of us, we clearly don't. Animal products taste great. I will be the first person to admit this, and they're probably better than plant-based products. But our gustatory pleasure is clearly a bad justification for justifying.
That's kind of true, but also taste is just largely a matter of habit. If you just eat, the same type of food for a while, you don't really have, you don't have the same cravings anymore. It is just a thing of a habit.
Admit this, and they're probably better than plant-based products. But our gustatory pleasure is clearly a bad justification for justifying torturing sentient beings. Especially for someone like Destiny, with the platform that you have, the stakes are even higher. If you convince just 3% of your average viewers to go vegan, you could help spare roughly 210,000 animals from some of the worst misery ever experienced by sentient beings. So my question to you, Destiny, is why aren't you vegan yet?
Okay, I think that there are two huge problems with veganism that I think vegans hand wave away, and they just kind of assume are, one is that the thing doesn't matter, and then the second is that we just kind of take it for granted. So the first thing that I will say is it's strange to speak about moral ways to treat any class of things that will never themselves be able to conduct themselves in moral ways. I don't think that's a request that we would ever make of any group of people or any individual, that you would treat, some person or something or some entity that can never develop morality or any kind of moral systems on their own. So in a world with humans,
I don't see how that disputes the sort of basic syllogism he gave, that we causing an immense amount of suffering for trivial benefits is wrong. Eating meat causes an immense amount of suffering for trivial benefits. I don't see why sort of if we're saying the trait essentially that makes animal suffering not matter is that they aren't of a rational
person
kind
or something
that
or
could develop morality based on their own.
entity
But that seems totally, to me, that doesn't seem particularly relevant. You can imagine, obviously it's weird that he says some person here or whatever, because I would imagine if you said if disabled people who just truly could not develop any understanding of morality, it would not be, I don't believe it would be moral to cause an immense amount of suffering to them so we could eat them.
That we would ever make of any group of people or any individual, that you would treat, some person or something or some entity that can never develop morality or any kind of moral systems on their own. So in a world with humans, we talk about farming a pig as being this deeply unethical thing, but if you remove the human aspect from it, you put the pig in the wild and some tiger, I don't think pigs and tigers live together, but whatever fucking animal eats pigs, right? If this thing were to encounter the pig and eat it from the nuts up or whatever, because based on the videos I've seen on YouTube, it's a real crazy way that they hunt, that somehow that situation is a morally preferable one to factory farming. The reality is
it doesn't even necessarily, so it doesn't necessarily have to be morally preferable. You can hold, for example, I do care about the suffering of wild animals. Do you open to drag me into VC? I want to get, sorry, Darko, I want to get, I'm watching this, I gotta get to bed. Okay, dude, I have so much fucking English work that I have to speed run through. No worries. I'm sure I'll do it. Okay, I just have 14 assignments to do in 5 days, basically. I think that's fine. You don't have to I don't even think you necessarily have to hold it's morally preferable, right? They could be the same, and it would still it could still be wrong to a good GPA is important for flexing. That's true. I think it's more honestly, I don't care about my GPA that much. I think it's prerequisite for like a class I'm taking next semester, and I think would fuck me over if I like fucking failed it. But regardless, like, you know, if there are only two possible worlds, one in which a pig is eaten by a tiger and one in which a pig is eaten by some but by like a human or whatever, and assuming that the amount of suffering is equal in both of them, whatever, I don't think either one of those is preferable to the other one, but I would still hold that causing a lot of suffering by eating meat is wrong, is bad, is not bad.
That given a world where humans don't exist, where factory farming doesn't exist, all of the same type of animal suffering basically exists, you know, completely unstopped and unchecked by any animal, because nobody would even develop any moral system from these creatures until humans evolve. They would ever check any.
Like, I don't. I think either, like, the argument of wild animal suffering, like, it would get you to, oh, we should also care about wild animal suffering, or it would just get you to make some distinction between like commission and omission, right? Like, it would just like, obviously, you know, we probably we might have some stronger obligations to like animals that wouldn't exist otherwise if it weren't for us, or, you know, we probably have more of an obligation to, you know, not bring into existence net negative lives or whatever than to stop the ones that are already like in existence or whatever. I like to taste the shrimp, sue me.
Any of it. And so I don't know why there's a morally preferable world where animals exist that hunt other animals to the one that exists right now where humans factory farm animals, unless we just say animals.
We also animals like
themselves in a preferable world where animals exist that hunt other animals to the one that.
It's not like because we do factory farming, animals don't hunt other animals. We both exist. So basically, we should be fine. Eugenics, true.
Exists right now where humans factory farm animals, unless we just say animals themselves never develop the mind to have the agency to have any kind of moral culpability for any of the actions that they take. I'm not aware of any vegans saying that we should be charging animals that are carnivorous with crimes that they murder another animal, but
me for real. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think animals are, because animals are not of the rational kind that can develop morality, as Destiny mentioned. Like, I don't think animals are sort of morally culpable for the actions they do. Like, I don't even really like. I'm a determinist, so like I don't even like you know, I don't think humans have, certainly I don't believe we have free will of the type that would really make you like truly morally responsible for you know, at least most of the actions that you do. I don't think that forbids me from saying certain actions are not good and certain actions are not bad.
For some reason we consider it unethical if a human consumes one for food. The second issue has to do with this concept of a mind like ours. I'm aware that mammals all possess like similar substrates, similar parts of the brain that do the things that our brain does, but I think it's pretty clear that none of these animals seem to have developed a mind like ours, such that there is no emergent culture, no emergent like real language capacity or communication skills, or the ability to understand things in the past, present, and future, or in other areas at different.
I think you need to bite the odd order predator bullet, though. I mean, I think there are like probably. I mean, I think there are ways you could not do it. Like, I do care about wild animal suffering. If you believe black people live worse lives on average, worse on average does not mean net negative. Would it be more acceptable to avoid black people? No. I don't care about average utility. I care about total utility. But like, I think, you know, there are probably ways to just say like, oh, you know, it's more wrong to bring in animals to existence for the sole purpose of torturing them and eating them than it is to simply like allow animals that exist in the wild to just continue existing even if they live negative lives. I'm taking notes. We can chat some time during not vitals. No worries. I don't talk about veganism that much, but sure.
Parts of time. These are all like really sophisticated things that humans have developed, and I think also go into our understanding of things like pain and suffering as well. You can see an animal that gets hurt and it seems to have pain, and it might even develop some kind of like associative responses to stimuli in the environment, and it looks bad and it pulls at our heartstrings, and I definitely understand that. But I mean, I would harken to the first thing in that for the moral argument, in the wild these animals will never develop these moral systems, and then to the second thing, to say that we understand that their understanding of pain or suffering is similar to ours is a statement that I just don't think we can make. I don't know if we'll ever be able to make that statement. We can't even see consciousness really in other people. We just kind of assume it's there when the parts of the brain are communicating, and they seem to have a conscious experience like ours, but to just automatically assume that animals that lack a whole bunch of other traits that humans have magically have that same capacity for pain or suffering, I just don't see where the argument would come from to support that statement.
Well, I don't know what he means by, I guess, so when he says the same capacity, I don't think animals can suffer as intensely as humans, but I think all the, like, if you observe all this behavior that doesn't even mention, you should, you know, like the more safe bet, the more likely scenario is that they are conscious and they can suffer. Veganism would never be widespread as long as chicken tastes as good as it does. I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you, Easy Money, but I hate veganism with abortion debates. It is, I do it. It's so annoying. Every on fucking America tour is half veganism and half abortion, bro. But I think we could stay in an interesting conversation for 12 minutes. Let's go. I mostly agree. That is true. It is based easy content.
Statement.
So there's a lot to parse there. I guess the first thing I would ask is, I don't think you fully addressed the claim that I'm making, which is this intuition that we have that it would be wrong to torture a dog for the sake of hearing its screams or something like that. Most of us have this kind of intuition. My question is, how can we explain this intuition except for the principle that it's wrong to cause massive amounts of pain and suffering to beings, even animals, for the sake of relatively trivial benefits like, the pleasure of hearing them scream? So how are you going to explain that principle without,
Yeah, I would argue there's two senses of intuition pumping that's happening here. The first is that I think we heavily associate dogs with, like, man's best friend. Like, we've bred them to literally be domesticated animals that are friendly with humans, so the idea that you would be killing one, especially in a way where you're literally just doing it to, have some kind of, like, weird pleasure, I think that hits against that. But I think people also get similar feelings, funnily enough. I watched this unfold in a Twitch stream once where a bunch of people were abusing this robot that was walking back and forth. They were kicking it was falling over, and people were, like, feeling kind of sad. I'm sure people watched Blade Runner 2049. They felt sad when the one, like, stick lady got stepped on or whatever, and even though she's a robot. Like, we have intuitions for these things, but I don't know if that, like, tells us anything about the nature of the animal itself, because if I were to look historically, it seems like hunting developed as a strong thing that was intuitively correct for basically all of human society. I'm not aware of any, like, huge civilizations. I don't know how common it is that...
I guess I'm not... So I, like, Destiny, I guess, somewhat correct in that, we can obviously overfit intuitions, essentially, and our intuitions can be mistaken. Now, and like obviously culturally it makes sense why we would have a stronger intuition that dog, like, it's more immoral to to kick dogs or whatever than it is to do whatever to animals that we don't treat the same way. I don't think that, like, I mean, so part of it is I don't know if this is the most effective strategy for me personally. Like, I just have a very strong intuition that, like, pleasure and suffering matter, and, like, that's a very fundamentally intuitive thing to me, and I don't see any relative distinction between other than the intensity, obviously, but between the suffering of an animal and a human. It seems entirely arbitrary to me to have some distinction that's based on DNA, based on sort of being of a rational kind or whatever.
I guess Indians are vegetarian or vegan.
I don't think obviously the hunting, that was more or less out of necessity, and it makes sense why, like, Destiny's appealing to, like, culturally developed intuitions, and it's obviously likely that it would be a culturally relevant intuition that hunting is acceptable in hunter-gatherer societies.
But like, for the most part, like, every human civilization seems to have developed some form of, like, hunting or animal agriculture, and there wasn't this huge intuitive pushback against everybody doing it. Sorry, that was long. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm still not sure you fully addressed. So you addressed some, like, reasons why we have these intuitions, but you didn't explain why these intuitions don't show that the action is wrong. That I guess what precisely is it?
If you're appealing to intuitions and he provides an explanation for why our intuitions could be mistaken, like, that's responsive. But
that makes torturing a dog for the sake of hearing its screams, or kicking a robot or something. What makes those actions wrong?
Well, I mean, I feel like the thing that's wrong is it feels like anytime somebody is engaged in some kind of, like, needless destruction, or is getting some kind of, like, pleasure out of seeing something else, either break or be in some kind of pain, I think that as people, that just kind of throws up a red flag that it's unlikely that somebody's going to do that to an inanimate object or an animal, especially one that's bred to be, like, friendly with us, and not also do that same thing to other people. I think that's the thing we just immediately kind of recoil from.
Okay, so I mean, to be clear, we put people who torture dogs in prison for many years. I think it's up to 7 years in some states. So you're saying the reason we do this is because it's indicative of some kind of cruel disposition that they might behave in other ways, and other wrong ways to other humans. Is that fair to say?
Well, if you're asking me where the law comes from, I mean, that's a complicated. But I would say,
what would justify that putting people in prison for 7 years? I mean, maybe you think that we shouldn't put people in prison for 7 years who ruthlessly torture a dog for the sake of hearing their screams.
I mean, I would find more alignment with vegans there, and that I think it's strange to put people in prison for torturing animals like dogs, but animal agriculture is acceptable. But people obviously have a lot of issues with that who are meat eaters. So, but yeah, I mean, I would argue that it's probably because of, like, there's some kind of, like, sociopathic tendency or disposition there where you're just beating on a thing to feel good about yourself, whether it was an inanimate object or a dog or a cat or whatever. I think most people would do that in a very reprehensible light.
But I don't think that. I think that can be an explanation of the intuition again, but that doesn't. To me, that doesn't substantially address the issue that, like, what makes suffering, bad or not bad is sort of not how visible it is. It's not how, it's not the fact that you're taking pleasure in someone else's suffering. It's simply that, wait, not fun does econ. I do. I mean, I guess I don't like I said, I don't talk about veganism that much. I don't think I've ever had a formal veganism debate. I guess I talked to Ryan about the Shrimp Welfare Project, and I've just had some conversation about it with people in VC or whatever. But it's not something I really like to focus on, I guess. But the left should be conversing on how best to counteract Nicholas J. Fuentes. Not this. That's true.
I don't think it speaks to, like, any kind of, like, intrinsic moral value or moral character from the creature itself.
Okay, and
otherwise I would ask, like, why were so many different civilizations okay with developing hunting? Like, how were they able to get past this built-in? You say we have a deep moral intuition against animal cruelty. Why were so many people okay with hunting for animals?
Yeah, I mean, I have to imagine that's extremely divorced from the kind of suffering we inflict on animals today. I mean, hunting for an animal
It's
is
obviously it's obviously out of necessity back then. If you want to fight non-fun for 20, your mother is a nice one. What?
is nothing like the way that we procure and consume animal products today. As I mentioned, factory farming is one of the greatest sources of suffering on the planet if you think that animals are sentient. And I think that probably sufficiently explains the difference.
Do you think, I'm just curious, just real quick on that, would you be okay with animal agriculture if it was like, I forget what they call it, like torture-free farms
like
or, yeah, whatever, like that kind of stuff? Is that an okay form of animal act to you?
I think it would significantly reduce the badness of something like industrial animal agriculture. But I think there are like a lot of problems with this today. I mean, first of all, there's no such thing as a humanely raised animal. At least it's very hard to find them and like eat them multiple times a day. For one, if you purchase eggs, no matter if they're the pasture-raised eggs, you get them from your aunt's backyard or something.
Okay, over 3 hours.
It is
nice.
almost 100% likely in the United States that this egg came from an egg-laying hen who was hatched in a hatchery where the male chicks are macerated.
It's like within a rounding error. Like almost all animals are factory farmed in the U.S. and it's even like I could obviously imagine a humane way to fucking eat eggs and stuff, but what he's saying is right. And also even in cases where we have fucking cage-free birds or whatever, which cage-free is still on the whole like way inhumane. Like we've selectively bred a lot of animals to be fucking egg-laying, milk-producing machines, such that like even just living relatively normal lives causes some like it could be painful. It could be it's dangerous, right? It can be dangerous. In a sense that like chickens that we have bred to be egg-laying machines can get like egg bound really easily, where like an egg gets stuck in there, so
because they're just not you don't need them to lay eggs in the egg-laying hen industry. So I mean, in practice, there's no such thing as a humanely raised animal product, at least completely humanely raised. And then the second thing is just, I mean, when we think about the way that eating animal products affects our psychological attitudes towards beings that we think have some sort of moral value, it's clearly going to affect it negatively, right? I mean, there have been psychological studies that show people who, consume meat, humanely raised meat, the most humanely raised they can find, tend to care less about the suffering of animals. They've done studies on this.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? People that find the most humanely raised meat possible care less about the suffering of animals? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly how the study worked, but they found people who claim to consume only humanely raised meat and perform a few like psychological evaluations and
so
find
male
that
chickens get made into
less likely to care
dentists.
about the suffering of animals.
They're male
they're more
chicks.
careless about the suffering of animals.
They do get is it a chick calling or whatever? They get I don't actually know if they use any of the meat for them. I don't think they do. But yeah, they get ground up.
Are callous to it.
Why do they eat more humanely raised products? I'm assuming they cost more then, no? Isn't that kind of weird? Or what was the explanation for that?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
But besides that point, I think in practice, like I said, it's extremely hard to find humanely raised products
in the US. I don't know
in the real world. So you'd have to be like extremely diligent, almost as much as a vegan, in how your effort to.
Donald Trump actually did. I actually don't know who went through. He did actually want to repeal a lot of the like state level protections for certain animals that we had, like that mandated. Like certain states had like mandated, pigs have to have enough room in their crates to fucking stand up.
Reduce the suffering you cause with your animal product choices.
Theoretically, if you could do it though.
Sure. Yeah, that was the original question.
Because my next question is going to be, it feels like then we're already closer in agreement on my end because you're putting them in some different category, because I don't think we would ever agree that there's like a morally okay way to raise and eat humans, right? So it seems like we're already putting animals in some different category.
Well, I mean, I would, like, hypothetically, I could obviously imagine a word like a scenario when it's possible. I think the reason we like have a intuition or like a deeper intuition that's wrong is because like humans tend to like they can suffer more intensely. There's a greater capacity just for future pleasure in humans than there is in animals. So we typically view it as a lot more wrong to take a human life because there's just a lot more. Our lifespans are also just longer, like a lot more like life to live or whatever. But like I could. And also we care instrumentally about the sanctity of human life, right? Like we want a society where we respect other people's lives because we just think that as a rule leads to overall good outcomes.
You're saying it's okay in some ways to morally raise and consume them, no?
Again, I'm willing to concede certain facts about animals generating them having less moral status. I think that there are just still so many problems with the current system that
I mean, I don't think like Destiny is like he's pro abortion, pro killing babies. I don't know if you would say. I mean, I like agree with him that fetus up until a certain point isn't a person, but like, would it be intrinsically immoral to eat an aborted fetus? Like probably not. Like there'd be reasons why societally like it'd be disgusting or whatever, and probably not lead to actually good outcomes. But are you gonna watch any deal book interviews? I don't know what that is.
It's in practice, it's not something that's a real concern. For instance, I mean, most of the animals that are killed in the United States are babies. I mean, they're killed at a fraction of their natural lifespan. If the reason killing is wrong or death is bad is because it deprives a being of the future they would have otherwise had, then that seems like a seriously wrong action to take. And yeah, I know, I think most people, they don't know this, but if you ate like an animal product that was from an older animal, it doesn't taste as good. It's like a much tougher meat. Most people wouldn't enjoy it. So and yeah, I guess the point I want to just fully reiterate is that someone who is trying to like eat humanely raised products would have to be as diligent as a vegan, because they'd have to admit to be charitable with this argument, you'd have to admit that if you make a mistake and you accidentally eat a fast food or something, or from a restaurant where you don't know what an animal product is, you'd have to admit that you've just done something that's somewhat equivalent to torturing a dog for the sake of hearing its screams. Yeah. Stop you there. 5 minutes, Stephen.
Might I talk for 5 minutes? No, I'm just
Discuss for eating an aborted fetus is the same as discuss towards gay sibling incest. I agree. Just vibes, bro.
That was a 5-minute warning. Sorry, you said that eating an animal would be the equivalent of hearing a dog scream. Well, I feel like there's a big difference there, because the person eating the animal is engaging.
Psychologically, if you're enjoying screaming a dog, it's going to imply that you have some sadistic attitude.
And
so we're going to do
like
that
a biologically necessary function where we eat, and we know we need to eat to survive. Now, obviously, we don't need to eat animal products to survive, but I think that's a lot different than just torturing an animal.
Well, thanks.
For the sake of getting some kind of joyful response out of torturing the animal. I think that even when it comes to animal agriculture, this is the reason why like the PETA videos or whatever videos of animal ag are so effective, is because if people see somebody torturing an animal and all they see is like pain and suffering from the animal and somebody getting some kind of sick, twisted enjoyment out of it, even for an animal that we ordinarily eat, I think most people would be really uncomfortable.
Viewers watching, it's because I made a custom thumbnail and put Drew Gooden in the title.
Comfortable with that, but I also, does it not bother you, or I guess how do you address or deal with the fact that kind of like the animal kingdom, absolutely no moral systems or no moral treatment emerges from any of these animals either?
But also, that's like not that crazy for me on YouTube. That's not like if I'm doing a debate, I can get 15 viewers on YouTube. That's not particularly crazy.
Why would it be, for instance, unethical or immoral for a human to eat an animal, but it would be more ethical to leave that animal in the wilderness where another set of animals could kill it, often in kind of painful, excruciating ways, before they consume it?
Yeah.
Atoms or no moral treatment emerges from
I'm not sure I would hold that there, in this hypothetical, there is
these animals either
morally preferable situation there. Now, I think you could make some argument if you're not strictly a consequentialist to like say, oh, when you do some action, you take on some extra obligations. There's some difference between omission and commission. But like, that's obviously not what we're doing. If the two choices were between an animal getting eaten by some other animal in the wild, or an animal being eaten by a human, like, I probably wouldn't care. But we're bringing billions of animals into existence for the sole purpose of torturing them and eating them.
So why would it be, for instance, unethical?
I think your idea of not streaming much is low-key smart, pent up demand. True.
Or immoral for a human to eat an animal.
It's not really my idea. It's just that I'm really bad at time management.
But it would be more ethical to leave that animal in the wilderness where another set of animals could kill it, often in kind of painful, excruciating ways, before they can.
Like, we literally have bred species into existence just for factory farming. These are animals that some of these have like never even existed in the wild.
Yeah, I mean, the first problem with this kind of justification for why animals don't have moral status is that when we look at our own human species, we find beings that are incapable of this kind of reciprocal moral behavior.
I take Adderall substitute, dextro, fucking romanthine or whatever. I am noticeably less productive on days I don't take it, but even on days I do take it, sometimes I'm just bad at. I'm still just bad at actual time management. I'm just, whatever task I happen to actually do, I will do it quicker. But I'm not good at assigning myself tasks in a reasonable order and everything.
Like conservatives? I'm so joking. I'm just kidding. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
And we still think that these beings have moral status. Infants, severely cognitively disabled people, the elderly, the senile. Not the elderly, the senile.
So I understand this argument. It kind of runs into like this kind of like name the trade place. Like, I would make an ontological argument here. I would say that like mankind or people kind, I don't know what we call it now, but like humanity has like these qualities to it where a fully developed person that's as realized as you can be biologically would be able to do all these things. One of these things is have the capacity for thought and reason such that social contracts and moral systems emerge. Now, maybe every single member of that class for some reason qualities to it where a fully developed person that's as realized as you can be biologically.
It seems like
I don't know what we call it now, but like humanity has like these qualities to it where a fully developed person that's as realized as you can be biologically would be able to do all these things. One of these things is have the capacity for thought and reason such that social contracts and moral systems emerge. Now, maybe every single
it's, again, essentially, all I take away from this is just being of essentially a rational kind. It's just, I mean, he's not saying of a rational kind, but he's saying of a kind that is able to have a moral system. But like, I just don't one, I think that would lead to reductios. Obviously, with like I guess you could define human being the kind. I mean, it seems relatively arbitrary to me. And like, even if you are a disabled human, you're still of the kind human, therefore entitled to the same rights or whatever. But even that, like, you can imagine, like, if humans were 51%, like 51% of humans born were like severely mentally disabled or whatever, would we no longer be of a kind that was rational enough to have whatever moral systems, or do we only need a few members to have enough capacity to have the whatever moral systems?
Member of that class for some reason, a brain injury or some other type of developmental error, isn't able to do it. But as a class of people, like, we would say that we have this thing, therefore we treat, our moral status only kind of works if we grant it to every single person in that category. We can't like pick and choose people in the category, because then the whole category itself becomes suspect. So I'm not fully convinced that just because...
What is this like? This is like literally like the Lila Rose like argument against abortion. What are we doing?
Some senile or very young children are incapable of reciprocating morals means that, well, that's the same thing as the whole animal kingdom, of all of which will never reciprocate morals. I don't find that argument very convincing.
Sure. And before I address that, I just want to point out that the view you're claiming to be more intuitive is highly unintuitive. The claim that the particular kind of being a being belongs to determines whether the pain that they experience matters morally is highly unintuitive.
Got removed from the AA. I know wokeness is back. I know. Just when I thought a white boy can't get a little motion nowadays. Unbelievable.
I think to most people.
I know what you mean, but have you done therapy to help develop good habits for ADHD people? Only when I was like really a kid. I haven't really done. I had my obviously I had a psychiatrist or psychologist, whatever one prescribed me meds, but I don't do much like fucking CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. that meme. I don't know. I don't really do much of that stuff. I just do like, she was like, hey, is your blood pressure dying? Is your brain dying? Shit working? Right, we good.
And suppose you woke up tomorrow and you didn't know what you were.
Drugs don't magically cure everything. They're a tool alongside lifestyle change, sure.
And all you felt was just the most extreme agony you've ever experienced. It's like an unreflective agony. You're not thinking, wow, I'm in so much pain right now. I'm rational and I'm in so much pain. No, it's just extreme agony. If you ask yourself, or say you find out you're a pig or something like this. I don't know how this would be possible. I guess maybe you're behind a veil of ignorance and you like step back or something. If you find out you're a pig, should we think, wow, I guess my suffering didn't matter at all? This just seems highly unintuitive. But I guess to address your point about...
That is also if you do the veil of ignorance argument, I think obviously it would be highly intuitive. Like if you didn't know whether or not, I guess Destiny would just say, oh, it wouldn't matter, because if I was a pig, I wouldn't really be a pig. My consciousness, did you do high school debate? No. That would be a fundamentally different kind of consciousness, but presumably, you'd want, insofar as you think your consciousness can in any way be represented as, be in a fucking pig or animal, you would not hold that the suffering of that doesn't matter behind the veil of ignorance.
Just real quick on for the example, again, I find this a form of intuition pumping, because it always feels like, imagine one day you wake up and you're just screaming in agony because you're part of a factory farm, and then the alternative reality is it's like Charlotte's Web, where you're on a farm and everybody's happy and the spiders and the pigs and everybody get along with each other. Well, like, I'm trying to imagine what's it like living as a deer, and you wake up and there's like a leaf that's moving and you don't know if there's like 15 animals about to jump out and eat you, and that's literally every single day of your existence for your entire life until you get old enough that something finally catches up to you and eats you and you die. I don't know what it's hard to even imagine, what is it like, if I think of like a cat or a dog.
We always used to woke veil of ignorance and debate.
Well, I'm a bad example because I do sit on the computer all day, but for most humans that like to go outside and see the sun and everything, like the idea of being locked up in a house all day seems horrible, but we consider that to be a more humane way to treat a cat than to let them roam the streets for a variety of reasons. So I understand we can intuition pump one way and say, well, this thing would definitely be bad. And it's like, I don't even know what it's like to have an experience, like an animal like that. And I certainly wouldn't, because there are other experiences that they have that would be totally not okay to me, but they seem to enjoy or they seem to live in naturally. So
yeah, you bring up the problem of wild animal suffering, which is interesting. There are obvious disanalogies between the suffering of wild animals and the suffering we cause to animals on factory farms. For one, we cause the suffering to animals on factory farms. Animals in the wild, no moral agent is causing the suffering to another, to another being, another sentient being. So maybe that plausibly explains the difference. Another thing is maybe you just accept that, wild animal suffering is bad, and we should do what we can to prevent wild animal suffering without, preventing or without allowing some similarly bad action like destroying an ecosystem. So maybe that's one way you could explain that.
Does this argument? Okay, I'll make a quick comment. Can I give him the last, because I feel bad if I have the last one? Well, I feel, does this argument not collapse into like a weird like anti-natalist argument where you can say, well, factory farming
Oh my god.
is bad because it introduces a lot more
Well, I'll see you later, Ivan. I appreciate stuff.
suffering into the world, and if you just have like the wilderness as is, then there's going to be less suffering. But like, could I make the argument, for instance, like, well, I actually think it's super ethical if you eat only cats because they're obligate carnivores. So for every one cat you eat, you're actually saving like 1,000 other animals. And then could you just not run this ad infinitum until like the larger creature you eat, the less harmful and suffering there is, until like all the animals on the planet are dead and nobody's suffering anymore, and then you can have the less.
Obviously, did it say like not every animal on the planet has a net negative lives, and like in the real world, you'd expect some negative effect from, you know, like I think he's he gave Cass's the example, right? Which like presumably it would not have some substantially a negative effect on the environment insofar as you ate cats, which are responsible for eating birds. That might actually be positive for environmental health or whatever. But like there'd be some that has to do with the auto or whatever. Like there probably would be some like some amount of you know, predator calling or whatever that you could do that would harm the environment in such a way that it'll actually have an overall net negative effect, because even if it reduces wild animal suffering, maybe it fucks up the ecosystem enough that it makes you know, human life unlivable there. Like they're plausibly examples of that as well. But
Not sure I follow that. I'm wondering, could you repeat?
Well, because cats have to eat other animals to survive generally, right? They're obligate carnivores, not carnivores. Some cats are fun, but not that fun. So I'm just saying that, like, would it not be more ethical to kill or eat animals that only have to eat other animals? Like, if I eat one cat, that cat's not eating 100 other animals, so I'm reducing the suffering. And then could you just not run that same thing with every larger creature until you've eaten?
I mean, I guess the intensity would also matter, although, you know, plausibly, in most cases, you know, it's going to be the case that carnivores are going to cause more suffering than they prevent or whatever.
Eradicated everything on the planet, so there's no more.
But also, technically, if you if you believe that the prey also live net negative lives, which it's totally possible many of them do, then it actually wouldn't be moral to save the lives of the wild animals with net negative lives.
Suffering, like a form of like animal anti-natalist argument.
Yeah, I mean, again, it seems implausible that you'd be able to do anything like this without destroying the ecosystem. But I mean, it's an interesting question whether we should, you know, reduce the number of natural predators in a population. I think it's kind of irrelevant to the question of whether we should be causing massive amounts of pain and suffering to sentient beings for trivial benefits. But it is an interesting question. I'm just not sure how it fully relates to the factory farming question. And I guess, yeah, I mean, the last point I just want to, you know, emphasize is that the amount of suffering we cause to factory farmed animals in a few years is probably equivalent to the amount of suffering that every human on Earth has ever experienced in the history of humanity. This is just true if you run the numbers and you look at the neuroscientific data that suggests that non-human animals, especially land mammals, experience roughly the same amount of pain and pleasure that humans do, given the same amount of aversive stimuli. That fact makes, you know, veganism such a heavy moral imperative. I think it's an interesting question whether animals have a right to life in the way humans do, whether it's right, it's permissible to humanely raise and kill an animal. The fact of the matter is that this is just not how the world is right now, and people should be vegan. Contingently, Destiny, you should be vegan until we develop cultivated meat, better plant-based meat. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, well, that was interesting, but I remain unconvinced. We might watch more of that later, because I think some of the debates I don't care about because they're talking about fucking stupid Charlie Kirk shit, and I don't care, bro. Like, we're still on this, like the stupid political. Can't you just condemn political violence? That's the thing. I don't care. I don't even take a strong position. I just don't care. The Q&A's happening and stuff. Let's go. Yeah, I think I would watch the Q&A either way. Yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, I find the like I do weigh the sort of very fundamental intuition I have, and maybe I've, to some extent, there are so many things that I think I've thought about enough that my intuition is probably not actually that valuable. It's like obviously, like I was talking to Ryan yesterday, 2 days ago, something about like utilitarianism and such, and like he brought up like special obligations, like, oh, you know, if I have 100 Nobel laureates, and I don't know why I'm doing that voice for Ryan. Ryan's chill, but you know, on one track and my daughter on the other, I'm killing the 100 Nobel laureates. I wouldn't even think about it. It's like, well, that might maybe I've just thought about it too much, but to me that is just like highly unintuitive. But I think most people, like, I think if you polled people, they would take the position that you should kill the Nobel laureates over your daughter. Lawyer Ryan will, yeah. Yeah. I think we don't have anything scheduled yet, but there probably will be a longer debate between us about shit. I did not mean to turn off. I totally forgot. I did this stupid fucking AI non-font thing here. Oh my god. I wonder if I still have credits for this thing. Dude, that fucking jump scared me. Okay, Jesus. Yeah, there will be some formal debate. When I say formal, I mean like not like we're talking about utilitarianism tangential to something, or we're I'm crashing his Colin's stream to talk about it. I mean like it's time set specifically to talk about it, not like moderated and judged or anything. But so that'll be happening. I might stream it. I don't know. I have some a debate on the 8th about neoliberalism and whether neoliberalism is like good for Gen Z or something, but it's like on a pre-recorded audio only podcast. I might just ask if I can either stream it or record it on my end, and then I could upload it afterwards, and or just stream it while I'm doing it. But I have that, and then I think that's all I have planned. Other than that, we're just gonna be chilling. We're gonna be doing stuff, and I'm gonna go I want to say do homework, but I know I'm not gonna. Anyway, love streaming. Love you guys watch me stream. Appreciate you guys all stopping by. Really fun that I get to do this, get to chat to all y'all, have some fun doing it, and I can get my YouTube paycheck so I can build a new, mostly new computer. Same power supply and same GPU for now, I guess. But other than that, new. So I'll see you guys tomorrow on YouTube. You're heading over to Pisco on Twitch. I don't think I have enough people that it's worth rating anyone. So yeah, see you guys later at some point.